Mr. Hammo, could you please unmute yourself and try to talk, or so we can. No, you are unmuted. You are muted now. Please unmute yourself.
I was unmuted.
Yeah, now it's okay now. Yeah, we're all the time muted, and we didn't know that you are speaking. Okay.
Yeah. Are we starting? I think.
Yeah, just within 1 second, because we didn't know that you are here. Everything is fine. Mr. Khaldoon, he's now joining us. Please.
مهندس خلدون المحترم، صباح الخير. دكتور علي. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an extraordinary opportunity for me personally to join this landmark event. Thanks to Aqua and to UN Habitat for putting this in and for selecting the topic that I will be delighted to moderate today. It's a topic that is actually missing in the dialogues. We have a lot of events where treatment and reuse of wastewater across the region is on the agenda, but hardly a few look at it from the access to finance and financing the treatment and reuse at scale in countries in the region. Pleased to be with you. I'm Hamul Amrani from ESCWA, and I'm going to be moderating this debate today. I see that the agenda is quite congested. We have a lot of outstanding speakers. We have presentations, we have a dialogue, and we have, of course, room for the audience to interact with the speakers and within the audience. So the session is as I mentioned, a mix of executives. We are delighted to have His Excellency Tawfiq Shorbaji, Minister of Water and the Environment in Yemen, a member of the board of directors of Aqua, to share the policymakers' perspective on treatment and reuse of wastewater in the context of conflict and fragility in Yemen. We'll start by inviting His Excellency to make a short statement on financing. But before that, we'll need to give the floor to His Excellency. So, Ma'ali al-Wazir, you are kindly invited to make a 5-minute statement to start the event. Is Minister Tawfiq with us?
Yeah, he's with us. I don't know, when I visit Yemen, they have big problem in communication, but just now I talked to him.
موجود
أهلين.
معالي الوزير، أهلا وسهلا
حمو، كيف حالك؟
ومرحبا معاليك، وشرف للويبينار وللحضور الكريم ان حضرتك تكون معنا النهارده في ظل زحمه الالتزامات والمهام المنوطة بمعاليك كوزير.
الله يخليك حماد.
والكلمة لمعاليك لافتتاح الاجتماع.
شكرا حماد، الله يخليك. ألف شكر دكتور. شكرا خلدون. الأخوة الأعزاء الكرام، أسعد الله صباحكم بالخير. اسمحوا لي في البداية أرحب بجميع المشاركين في هذا الويبينار، هذا اللقاء الهام المخصص لمناقشة قضايا الصرف الصحي وتحديات التمويلات التي تواجهها بلداننا العربية، بالإضافة إلى فرص الاستثمار المتاحة. وهي فرصة بمشاركة الجهات التمويلية والخبراء للاستماع للإشكاليات التي تعاني منها العديد من الدول العربية في الحصول على التمويلات في قطاع الصرف الصحي، والذي يمثل بالنسبة لنا جميعا هما كبيرا، كونه يحتاج إلى تمويلات عالية كما تعلمون مقارنة بمشاريع إمدادات المياه، بالإضافة إلى إمكانية الاستفادة من المياه المعالجة كمصدر غير تقليدي للمياه تعوض النقص الحاد الذي تواجهه بلداننا في هذا الجانب. الأعزاء جميعا، نحن نولي اهتماما كبيرا بمياه الصرف الصحي والتخلص الآمن لها، ولكن على الرغم من جهودنا الكبيرة في المنطقة العربية في هذا الجانب، إلا أننا لا نزال نحتاج الكثير للتعافي وإصلاح قطاع الصرف الصحي الذي لا يزال متدني في منطقتنا العربية بشكل عام، وفي اليمن بشكل خاص، والذي لا يتجاوز في أحسن حالاته 40% في المناطق الحضرية، ناهيك عن الإشكاليات التي تعيق تحقيق تقدم ملحوظ لغياب أو نقص التمويلات، بالإضافة إلى الانقسام السياسي ونتائج الحرب والنزوح والتهجير القسري والإشكاليات السياسية التي تعلمونها، بالإضافة إلى تهالك وقدم الشبكات وانعدام ونقص الوقود، وكذلك الخبرات التقنية والفنية والقدرات الاستيعابية لمرافق ومؤسسات القطاع. إن كل ذلك يؤدي إلى نقص عمليات المعالجة في المرافق وتخلفها، بالإضافة إلى ضعف الحوكمة في قطاع المياه ضمن حدود عالية، خصوصا في مرحلة ما بعد الحرب. في اعتقادي أن تطوير وتنمية قطاع الصرف الصحي سيمكننا من تحقيق الهدف السادس من أهداف التنمية المستدامة وتقليل انبعاث الغازات والاحتباس الحراري من هذا المصدر، وتلافي الأمراض المنتشرة في المجتمعات الفقيرة، والحصول على مورد إضافي من المياه المعالجة، وهذا ما دعمته مقررات مجلس وزراء المياه العرب مطرح هذا العام. المشاركين جميعا، يطيب لي أن أتقدم بالشكر للجمعية العربية للمرافق المياه أكوا على تنظيم هذا الاجتماع الذي أعتبره بداية طريق لمرحلة جديدة يمكن البناء عليها لصياغة خارطة الطريق للمنطقة العربية لحل مشكلة التمويلات وتسهيل الحصول عليها، خاصة وأن عدد من الممولين حاضرين معنا اليوم كالصندوق الأخضر والبنك الإسلامي ومنظمة الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، بالإضافة إلى أخوة في الجامعة العربية. عملنا كبير بنتائج المناقشات والحوارات والخروج برؤية واضحة للتمويل يمكن حل إشكاليات قطاع الصرف الصحي من خلالها لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة لبلادنا. أكرر شكري للجميع مع خالص التقدير.
شكرا معالي الوزير على هذه الكلمة الافتتاحية والتي تؤطر موضوع حوارنا اليوم من زاويتين: أهمية His Excellency has pointed out and framed the issues to be debated today, the need to maximize and optimize the treatment and reuse of wastewater, but also to look into sustainable financing mechanisms. And of course, the contribution of the financing mechanisms to the achievement of the SDG 6, and also the contribution to the Paris Agreement by reducing the GHG emission, and also make sure that the management of wastewater is protecting the environment. And issues facing the sector have been listed by His Excellency. And finally, His Excellency concluded that we do need a roadmap for sustainable financing for treatment and reuse of wastewater. Thank you, Excellency. And with no due delay, I will now shift to Mr. Graham Alabasta, the head of Geneva office at UN Habitat in Geneva. Mr. Graham, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, moderator. Excellency, Minister, distinguished delegates, colleagues and friends, it gives me a great pleasure to be with you virtually at this meeting, at the second in a series of webinars, which our colleagues in AQUA have very kindly agreed to organise. Wastewater is at the heart of a lot of the work that UN Habitat do, and it's against the background of increasing urbanisation, climate insecurity, and now increasing energy costs, that we're finding that wastewater is becoming more and more important, and we need to look much more effectively at its management. WHO UN Habitat some time ago started a process of collecting data towards the SDG monitoring of 631 of wastewater. And it was then that we realized that there was a huge shortage of data, and there was a need for us to much better understand, particularly at the subnational level, what was happening, where wastewater was being used. Now, I know in the Arab countries that you, of course, lead the world in many respects because of your region being scarce, but there is a need, if we are to stimulate, promote more investment in wastewater, for us to have a much better, clearer understanding of all of the sources and sinks of wastewater. Because I think in the early days, the monitoring was just looking at domestic wastewater and not wastewater from other sources. So as we look, I mean, one of the main reasons for collecting this data, of course, is to stimulate more investment in the sector. And we're confident now we are getting much better ideas, working with partners in the region like AQUA and with utilities and with ministries, national government ministries. We're building up a picture of this complex jigsaw of wastewater and how we can manage it. But I think perhaps most importantly, if we are to see the changes needed to make us sort of future-proof from the climate emergencies, that we really need to dig a bit deeper, and we need to invest much more. Not just in the traditional ways that we treat wastewater, but bringing in new ideas, bringing in nature-based solutions, looking at decentralized approaches, which in some cases offer a better solution for reuse. So it's against this background that the webinar today is looking at how we can fast track and move faster on that financing. Of course, there are many ways of financing wastewater, and now, perhaps because of the increasing energy and water costs, there will be a greater interest in investing in this. I know that our partners in the development banks have many very good solutions, including some that enable sub-sovereign lending. But we very much look forward to working with partners, particularly the Islamic Development Bank and others, to see how we can fast track these investments. And Habitat has a key role to play, because we can support with some of the pre-investment capacity building that's needed. And of course, through working with partners like AQUA and others in the region, we know that we can achieve our aims. So I unfortunately can't stay with you for the whole of the meeting, but I will stay for as long as I can. And thank you very much indeed to all of you for giving your time to discuss this very important sector. Habitat gives its full support, and I'm looking forward to today's proceedings. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Sir Graham, for this very short but very rich statement on, particularly on the changes we need to see in attracting sustainable finance for treatment and reuse, the way it's happening for domestic water supply. And probably one of today's expected outcomes is to understand or to propose a set of entry points for that change that you rightly described to happen. You refer to one key element that probably we need to come across in our debate today is data. So far we have a proposal for a roadmap from His Excellency, ways to improve governance of treated wastewater, and innovation in attracting new channels for sustainable finance for treatment and reuse of wastewater. So thank you, Sir Graham, and we very much appreciate your time, and we definitely will be happy to see you with us as much as you can with your agenda today. Now we move to presentation on the objective and the roadmap that is going to be presented by Mr. Jose Luis Martin Bordes, a consultant for UN Habitat. Sir Jose, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamrani. Salam alaikum. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to intervene just for a few minutes to give you the overall framework for this series of webinars that, as Graham said, it is an ambitious attempt to gather professionals, national governments, financiers, and practitioners around at the table to discuss the issue of wastewater treatment and management. As far as we know, this is the first attempt where the United Nations, UN Habitat in this case, and the professional world come together hand in hand to engage and ask water utilities about their needs, the challenges, the major drawbacks they are facing when it comes to not only wastewater treatment and management, but also for wastewater data collection and analysis. So we started these regional consultations in Latin America and the Caribbean. We moved to Africa, and we are now immersed in this roundtable with countries in the region, wisely guided by ACWA. I have highlighted on my slide what is making this second webinar so important, and this has already been mentioned. Utilities usually talk about technical issues, about technologies, innovation, but it's less common that we bring also national governments and financiers and business representatives to be engaged in a larger discussion about what the needs are. So through this series of webinars, the first one focusing on data management, data collection and management, the second one on financing, leading to the third webinar on governance and policies. The idea is that after these three webinars, we will have some input, some meaningful recommendations that will help UN Habitat and its regional partners define or set up the agenda for intervention in the region. Intervention for hopefully more investments into the sector, for more capacity development, and for more access to wastewater treatment and more development of the wastewater sector. So this is all from my side. I wish you a very fruitful and interesting discussion. And this is back to you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Lamrani. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Jose Luis, for this presentation that is setting the stage for the next set of presentations. Actually, the good thing is that there is an innovation in the platform and in the attendance. We have policymakers, we have experts, we have government representatives, we have practitioners, but we have also the financiers, and I think this is the added value of this kind of events, and definitely we look forward to conclude with clear recommendations on the issues you listed, or the expected outcome of today's dialogue. More investment, more capacities, and more interventions. I think with the dialogue we are having, this is quite a clear roadmap for today's meeting. I'm very pleased to invite my colleague and friend, Dr. Amgad Al-Mahdi, from the water sector lead at GCF in Korea. The GCF has surely an approach, a strategy to finance wastewater treatment and reuse within its mitigation and adaptation, because actually wastewater serves both. What are the gaps and what are the barriers from GCF perspective? Dr. Amgad has the advantage of not only being a financier, but also being an expert that has a long-standing experience in wastewater treatments and reuse, particularly in MENA region. Dr. Amgad, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dr. Hamwan. It's a pleasure and honor to be talking and to all the colleagues and friends as well, and be engaged again with the MENA region. So as Dr. Hammo mentioned, what I would like to cover today is really to share with you the wastewater sector or subsector in general, and what is really the key climate change impact that become really a motivation and the trigger for us really as GCF to support the wastewater. And I will explain how GCF really fund and also support the wastewater project, with also introducing some of the financial gaps and what are the key barriers and how we can address that. So if I go quickly, just as a very high level about what we are seeing in the current world in terms of the increasing of the temperature and how that really reflecting in the fluctuation between flood and drought, as we see also fluctuation in the precipitation, and how the precipitation really moving from the wet area to the dry area, where we start seeing flood, but also we start to see more drought as well in terms of the agriculture drought, and also the heavy precipitation that result in flood and life losses. But we also have seen any change as well in the whole water cycle. And if I just focus on one element on the green water, which represent really the soil moisture as well, and that actually reach again or become outside really the safe zone. And what that tell us? It tell us really because the green water is the one really connect the land use, the biodiversity, the climate, and also the fresh water. And that actually telling us we really need to do something very quickly to be able to address that. However, we understand, of course, there is a big challenge in water accessibility and availability, as we see increasing in the precipitation as well. Plus, of course, as we see the water hot stress, where the MENA region, it's the first candidate for water stress area, all the Middle East and North Africa countries. But when we look at the opportunity for wastewater, it's not just a waste resources, but it's a resources that offer opportunity to be able to meet that gap in between supply and demand, or address the variability in the water availability as well. And in the figure in front of us, it shows us really the capacity and to what extent we are able to treat. So there is a great potential to actually to continue to treat, as we are really 80% of our wastewater is actually discharged without treatment. So there is a great potential there as well. And if we go out from the water, from the wastewater to really to the water sector, we see really the water sector as a connector or as a medium where we see the climate change. It offers us really a best investment opportunity where we can see or make really a real impact for the health, for the gender, for the environment, and be able really to establish resilience and transform really our communities. So why this not happening? And we have the SDGs, and we have the target that every country need to, as pledge and sign for the SDGs, need to deliver on that. However, when we look at where we are with the target, if we just look at SDG 6, it's actually the lowest target we have achieved so far. And that, again, it's quite alarming because we don't really have enough years to continue seeing that. So we really need to start to do a bold action and take a serious actions to be able to address that. However, we understand there is a challenge, and those challenges also come with a clear finance gap as well. So the figure in front of us here, it shows us really like how much 260 billion is actually required just for supply and sanitation, 4.5 billion lacking access to sanitation and also to be able to meet the SDGs, 2.1 billion of people lacking access to safe drinking water. And if we look at the infrastructure that is required, that we actually coming to up to 6 to 8 trillion that actually required to invest in the infrastructure. If we look at the indices, the national designated authority, we see like all of them have defined the water as one of the key priorities as well. So on average, 70% of all the indices actually define or set a high priority for water actions for adaptation, that's really including the wastewater. So why it's not happening? Because we see a big financial gap. So we see here a requirement of like 1.7 trillion. That was an estimate to be able to reach that access to safe and affordable drinking water. But we also see for the infrastructure, by 2030, we require almost 7 trillion of USD dollar, and that will increase up to 22 trillion by 2050. And all those figures, again, based on the condition of 2015. If we look at them at the moment, we actually, all those number again has revisited, and it has increased by almost 20%. But if we look at the figure in your right hand on the screen, what that's actually telling us, so this is actually the indicator for 6.5.1 for applying the integrated water resource management. And if we look at those sub indicator, what we see here, all the lowest indicators actually coming from the finance. So the first group here, it's actually coming from integrated water resource management budget, the infrastructure budget. We have the infrastructure budget and even the transboundary financing or budget as well. So again, the financing here is really a critical issue that become as a key barrier for most of the countries, most of the developing countries to be able really to tackle the wastewater and meet the SDGs. But if we focus on what are those barriers, so let's really dive in and understand those barriers. So we understand that the water is really underpricing, and that's really not just the real value, but even we have to treat water as a public good because it's everyone has the right to have access to water, but that also need to come with another way to look at the water value across the different sectors and across the value chain. We understand also the water service are very often are really underpriced, and that result really in a very low cost recovery in the water investment or water project in terms of like wash or sanitation and supply project. But we see the water project always come with a very capital intensive, so it requires a lot of upfront investment, especially in the infrastructure, and that again really suck more of the cost at the beginning. And of course, most of those projects again require a very long way or a very long time to pay back any loan or any investment. And also the difficulty in a way we monetize really the water benefits from any water investment project. And of course, most of the projects as well are very context specific because sometimes it comes on a very, very low scale that's very specific, and that again add extra cost in terms of the transaction cost to be able to invest in that. And lastly, I think it's really the business model by itself. So we have a poor business model when we look at the water investment project, and that has impact on the operational and maintenance, and also the impact on the overall cost of the project that actually hinder the private sector to come and invest in the water sector projects, including, of course, the wastewater. But is the question really is the quantity in terms of the finance? What we have seen from the analysis in front of us here, it's actually the quantity, it's not the issue. Like we have seen increase in the quantity of the finance, and that continue very clear requirement as well. Like we still continue to increase the requirement, to increase the quantity of the finance, plus of course the quality of the finance. So with the Paris Agreement that came in charge, and also, for example, Green Climate Fund that become operational since 2015. So we see really the climate finance, or the quality of the type of finance, has really also improved, where a finance become very concessional that to actually deliver on mitigation and adaptation aspect. But also we see challenge in terms of the disbursement and availability of the fund. So for example, we can see available fund or funding that get committed. However, when we come to look at the spending or the disbursement, we see actually lacking of that, or our disbursement become very behind. And that for many reasons. Sometimes as we have seen, for example, with the recent pandemic, COVID, it has a major impact on that, but we also sometimes international organizations are not able to mobilize a team on the ground, or sometimes the capacity on the ground are not ready to take the project, and so on. So there are many variables, but that things we really need to consider. If we look at really the available fund and how the fund get spent for since 2000 to 2018, we have seen like the figure in front of us show us really the top 20 countries that actually receiving fund in the water sector. And we see really the key aspect where the fund is allocated is really the large wash project, and also basic wash system. And in the top 20 in the Middle East, we see like Egypt, Jordan, Iraq coming very clear as one of the top 20 countries that actually receiving that fund. But if we look at really the landscape in terms of all the financial institutions, in terms of donors and multi-development bank and so on, and the key area of focus as well. So on your left side, you will see the key area of focus. I just highlighted here where GCF really focus. And you can see really we are focused on the WASH, we focus on water governance, water use efficiency, integrated water resource management, technology, innovative solutions. So next is like very much really the most of the aspects of the water, including desalination, wastewater treatments. However, what we are really looking for, how the organization really able to access that fund and actually be able to structure the problem as a climate change problem, because this really what happened with the current finance, like in terms of the quality, become more climate finance, and that require really to establish the problem as a climate finance problem. So for example, if you have a non-revenue water issue, if you put it as a management issue, that not give you acceptable under the climate finance. But if you are able to put that in terms of the climate change, the impact, the level of water treatment, and if you improve the non-revenue water losses or reduce that, that will reduce the abstraction or the level of treatment, and that will reflect on the energy. So it becomes as a mitigation problem. So again, the way you frame the problem, it really matter as well. So how we can really improve finance? So there are many actions that actually require our focus and require countries really to take actions as well to be able to improve that. So it's really a partnership. So it's not just on the country, but also on the banks and organization or donors as well. So that require really to improve the management and the performance in terms of the technical and finance. It's also the capacity to be able to absorb that fund and be able to disperse that fund as well and implement the project. the level of accountability and integrity, we have seen in the analysis 20%, up to 20% from the fund can be just lost under integrity aspect. So again, how we can be sure putting the regulatory framework, the policy that really improve the transparency, improve the integrity, and that will allow more fund as well to be available. But also we really need to think about how we can establish a better and acceptable revenue stream for water investment project, in particular wastewater. And I will show a good example for that later on, because that the way can make the project more as a bankable project and attractive to the public and also the private sector. And of course, the banks can become as a concessional loans that make that project more bankable as well. But of course, coordinated finance is also required, and that again, within the country, across sectors. So how you can set the priority for the investment and how you can look at the co-benefits for any investment. So if you talk about wastewater, so how that can be looked at in linkage with the food, in linkage with the energy sector, as like biogas. And so how you can establish that coordinated finance, but also at the bank side or at the donor side, that coordinated finance is also required. So let's see like what is GCF and how GCF really responds to all of that. So GCF, it's really the world's largest climate fund as a multi-development bank, and it's being developed or set up by UNFCCC and serving really the Paris Agreement. So we really need to support the developing countries to be able to transition to the low emission in terms of mitigation, but also improve the climate resilient society, and that under the adaptation aspect. So how we do that? So just before how we do that, just to share with you the level of finance and how that translated into the water sector. So very much like we have received 12.4 billion since the fund being structured and established and operational. And in terms of how the fund being allocated and also the benefits of that fund so far. So far we have allocated 6.2 in mitigation and 3.7 billion in adaptation. In terms of the beneficiaries from adaptation, almost 620 million around the world, of course. And in terms of mitigation, 2 billion ton of CO2 become reduced. And we offer like different financial institutions like instruments like grant loans or concessional loan, project loan, and syndicate loan, equity and guarantees. And in terms of the concessionality, just to give you idea how that come with a very low interest rate. So for the public entity, it become as 0.25% as an interest, and that up to 40 years with grace period for 20 years. If it's a private entity, it's the interest rate, it's 0.75% and up to 20 years with 5 years grace period. So that give you the level of concessionality that Green Climate Fund able to offer in terms of loans and as one financial instrument. But as I mentioned, we actually have other financial instruments. If we look at GCF in comparison to other multilateral banks, so really we are the largest in terms of the investment of adaptation, mitigation, and even cross-cutting. So for the project that really deliver on both aspects. And for the water sector, we are able to invest so far like 2.8 billion, and that including 1.3 from GCF, and the other or the difference was actually coming from public or private. So we've been able actually to mobilize different funds as well. So how we do that? So our focus really, we focus on 8 result areas. And those like, you can call it as a sectors, and like transport, energy, generation, forest and land use, and building, city and industry. And that really to reduce the emission. That interact with health, food, and water security. So the water aspect really link the two. So under cities, you can consider like a sponge city and so on. So I see Hammo putting his hand, I assume the time, so I will be very quick. and also the other areas like livelihood and infrastructure and ecosystem. So we do this through like transformational.
Sorry, Dr. Amgad, you still have a few minutes. Please go ahead. So it was not intended to.
All right. So in terms of like how we drive that change, so we have like four pronged approach. One is really to look at the transformation project where we are able to integrate the climate development policy and promote really the climate finance. Second, we catalyze the innovation, and that in terms of the technology, the enabling institution, the enabling investment environment, and so on. Third is really mobilizing finance, and that's where we see the opportunity for scaling up successful really climate investment project or de-risk investment project or make project more bankable. And also the fourth element is really the coalition and knowledge, and that's where we ensure the project are really developed based on the lesson learned and also sharing that knowledge for more sustainability for the project. So in terms of, I've been mentioned that already in terms of the different financial instrument that we provide, in terms of loan, guarantees, equity, grant, but also we work on the blending finance and developing capital and private capital. So for us, really, for any project, we really need to assess that project against those 6 investment criteria. Impact potential in terms of, is it adaptation, mitigation, or across cutting, and the level of beneficiaries, paradigm shift. So what is that in terms of like the innovation, the scaling, the technology, and so on. Sustainable development, how that really delivering on sustainability in terms of like SDGs, participants need, and that in terms of really the requirements of the countries and also the capacity of the countries as well, and promote the country ownership. So how we can promote that in terms of the country requirements, but also the country capacity. And then last criteria is really the efficiency and effectiveness, and that in terms of the financial viability or the economic viability, and also the effectiveness in terms of the level of efficiency and effective to deliver that project and implement that project. So the way we work, it's very much like a country-driven process, and that's through supporting the country as like a readiness program or different other program, and each country can go through the readiness as 1 million per country per year to become ready to be able to build the capacity and able to approach GCF and develop proposal. But also we support countries in terms of national adaptation plan, and that up to like 3 million per country to develop the national adaptation plan, which become as like a country plan where they define the key project that they wanted to deliver, and also the project preparation fund, and that per project up to 1.5 million. So that when we have a concept note and we see the opportunity of that concept note, and we understand there is a requirement to be able to develop that proposal, you need to do like a feasibility study, you need to do baseline assessment, you need to do gender assessment, you need to do environmental assessment. So that's where the project preparation fund play a role in that to support. And of course, all the project need to come to us through the accredited entity, and that accredited entity need to be accredited and registered with us to be able to implement and deliver on that project. And they can apply based on their level of accreditation. So we have different levels. So the small is really up to 50 million. And then we go for like 150 and 250 million scale project. So in the water sector within GCF, we have putting the strategy for water sector, and that will be published in next months, where we define really 2 pathways for paradigm shift. The first one is really to look at enhanced water conservation and water efficiency and water reuse, which mainly focus on mitigation. The second pathway is really to look at strengthen the integrated water resource management through protection from water-related disaster, preserve the water resources across the water cycle, and enhance, of course, resilience, water supply, and sanitation service. And that second pathway really focus on adaptation. So what does it mean for the two pathway? So for the first pathway, the type of project will be looking at where is really a demand management project that looking at reducing energy, reducing emissions from treating less water, for example, or promoting water saving picture, or water reuse system for irrigation. Or you look at the decentralized model like large scale water reuse or water recycle models, or you use water for agriculture or for aquifer recharge, or you can look at the smart digital water management, where you look at the non-revenue water and how you can reduce that, or even look at the resource recovery. For example, if we talk about wastewater, so you talk about the biogas from the anaerobic, the digestion system or thermal system, and also the type of treatment. Plus, you can include the different energy technology like floating solar power, where you cover the wastewater system to reduce evaporation and you generate energy. If we look at the second pathway in terms of adaptation, so that's including, for example, project that looking at ecosystem-based management that can be used for reducing flood or mitigate drought or improve water quality. You can also look at the alternative water sources as water reuse that can be utilized, like water harvest, gray water, storm water, and so on. And of course, the integrated water resource management in general that come with adaptation, planning, governance, like all the soft aspect to complement all the physical components. But what we take as I will just highlight here one new approach that really related to the wastewater as GCF really taking up forward as well, that what we call it really an innovative approach to think about the assets class for sanitation water reuse. And the way we define the assets here, it's the asset that actually serve adaptation or mitigation, and in the way it's being developed or designed or financed using really credit enhancement, so that really to crowd in the private sector, but also to come with acceptable financial return. And I will explain that in the following slides. And that need to remain in line with the ESG impact, and also with the Paris Agreement, and of course with the UN SDGs. And those key number of goals like SDG 6, SDG 13 and 17 and so on. And that will able to provide really the water source or the domestic, municipality, the industrial, so to meet their demand and really make the assets owned by private or public-private entity, and encourage government to buy the service rather than own the assets. And I will explain that in the following slides. So the way we see the asset class for the wastewater or sanitation is really have those four key elements: financial, so become as enhanced credit, and that could be by crowding in the private sector and make that project more affordable and bankable, and that could be through blending finance, and that could be by all different instruments we have. It could be a grant at the beginning, could be using concessional loan to attract the private sector, or we put a guarantee, or even we use equity. And then the structure of public-private partnership, or even a special purpose vehicle. And in terms of the acceptable revenue that actually serve the financial aspect is really how you look at the water tariff in terms of the purpose of use, and that based on the type of use for aquaculture or supply augmentation or whatever, but also the opportunity of the pipe product in terms of nutrients and fertilizers, the feed-in tariff, if there is an opportunity for that for the energy, but also the carbon credit that become, again, as a market that will be more active in future. So how we utilize this as opportunity as well for the carbon credit as another revenue stream, where we understand now the CO2 price now, based on the European assessment, it's almost $80. So again, it opened the door for another revenue stream for the assets. And then of course, the assets need to serve one aspect of the Paris Agreement, or the two, in terms of adaptation, so in terms of the number of beneficiaries, or mitigation in terms of the number of CO2 emissions, in terms of reduction of that or reducing that, and then how you map that asset against the different SDGs. So that's the way we approach now, and we currently working with South Africa with a massive program to redesign all the wastewater system in South Africa. It's a major program for 1.2 billion for the country scale to look at all the wastewater system and establish that new asset class. So just to close here, so what actions really require to support finance? So I just list a few here just to remind us again. So it's really, we really need to look at increasing the direct government investment that need to be supported again by good policy for de-risking that finance or to ensure that investment, but also to look at the revenue stream and how we can improve that revenue stream from traditional and non-traditional water service, and that in line with ESG and also Paris Agreement and SDGs. Improve transparency, integrity, and accountability. Mobilize really the private sector, so how we can really mobilize the private sector, and that need to come with a very supportive investment environment. How we can leverage on the opportunity of the recovery package, and that again as risk disaster, but using the integrated water resource management as a mechanism of coordination, and of course improve that coordination for the fund across sectors, so that at the country level, but also improve that coordination as well between donors and banks. Lastly here, and that again was coming very clear in the last assessment from IBCC, that again define how we can really scale up the climate finance to developing countries. And that again become for us as a mandate as a GCF, where it's really accelerate the financial support from developed country to developing countries. So we become more as enabler to do that, scaling up the public grants, so more grant for mitigation and adaptations to fund really the vulnerable communities, and also make that more cost effective and de-risk the finance, increase the level of public and mobilized private finance. As we know, like the 100 billion figure, so now there is a big call to increase that and meet that as well. Public guarantees to reduce the risk and the lower budget cost, support really the local capital market development, and build that greater trust in international cooperation as well. And that in terms of the process as definitions, information, capacity, and partners. And lastly, really coordinate the post-pandemic recovery, because there is again that big finance that coming that with increased really climate finance flow to the developing regions. So how we can use that again as opportunity to build that and coordinate that. And with that, thank you, and happy to take question. And sorry if I take long. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Hammo.
Thank you, Dr. Amjad. It's really, as usual, very informative talk with a lot of updates on what the GCF business is about and ways to access support and finance from the GCF, what it takes, and what should governments do to access finance from the GCF. And this is a typical talk where it's difficult to summarize. I wouldn't pretend to do so, but I still need to brief our colleagues that are not Arabic speakers. مداخلة الدكتور أمجد في الواقع كان لها أكثر من بعد. في البداية كان التركيز على أن التغيرات المناخية وقطاع المياه من منظور علمي ماذا تعني هذه التغيرات بالنسبة لقطاع المياه بشكل عام، وبالنسبة للمعالجة وإعادة استعمال مياه الصرف ومياه الصرف الزراعي والصحي وإعادة الاستعمال الأهم. يعني فالدكتور أمجد طبعا بعد أن عرض تأثير التغيرات المناخية تطرق للوضع الحالي. are we on the track؟ فكان يعني 8 مؤشرات ضمن أجندة التنمية المستدامة واتفاق باريس، أشار إلى أن كذلك حجم الاستثمارات المطلوب في قطاع المياه بشكل عام وفي Wastewater Treatment and Reuse، فهي طبعا أرقام كبيرة وتزيد، بحيث أن 22 تريليون في منتصف القرن، وأن هذا طبعا بعد عرضه للفجوة الموجودة بين من يستفيدون من خدمات مياه الصرف الصحي المعالجة وإعادة الاستعمال، ومن هم لا يحصلون على هذه الخدمة. وطبعا تطرق الدكتور أمجد كذلك إلى أن الإشكالية ليست في توفر التمويل. So finance is not an issue both in quality and quantity. I like that. بس disbursement ability كمان كان الدكتور أمجد أشار إليها، وأن من بين الدول 20 الأوائل في الحصول على خدمات الصندوق أن هناك 3 دول عربية من المنطقة، العراق والأردن ومصر. بالنسبة لموضوع الأولويات في قطاع المياه، يعني طبعا المياه والإصحاح والحوكمة والإدارة المتكاملة للمياه والتكنولوجيا والترابط بين القطاعات والتحلية كلها موجودة ضمن الأولويات. بس الإشارة المهمة والتي أريد أن نشملها نقاشنا هذا النهار يعني هي هناك فرق بين المشروع القابل للتمويل ضمن الآليات تمويل المناخ والمشاريع التنمية. فأنا أعتقد الموضوع ده ربما هو السبب في أن عدم أهلية العدد من مشاريع التنمية للتمويل ضمن صناديق المناخ، لأنها لا تبين أين الجزء المرتبط بالتغيرات المناخية تأثيرا وتأثرا. فأنا أعتقد أن هذه من بين النقاط التي يمكن أن نتوسع فيها في النقاش. طبعا كما قلت في البداية أن هذا نموذج من المداخلات التي يصعب تلخيصها. كان هناك عديد من الأرقام المهمة، كان هناك آلية عمل الصندوق وكيفية الحصول على تمويل من الصندوق وما هي الشروط الضرورية للحصول على هذا التمويل. تم كذلك عرض أهم التحديات أو العقبات التي تجعل قطاع المياه ليس منافسا على مستوى الحصول على التمويل. فطبعا ضعف تسعيرة المياه واسترداد الكلفة، وكذلك كون مشاريع المياه هي تحتاج استثمارات كثيفة خصوصا بالنسبة لما يتعلق بالبنيات التحتية، وكذلك صعوبة إعطاء القيمة المالية للفوائد أو للعائد من الاستثمارات، وأنها مشاريع كلها يعني كل بلد وضعه، وكل قطاع مياه في البلد وضعه. وفي نهاية المطاف يعني كذلك هناك عنصر يعتبر بمثابة حاجز، وهو أن المياه ليست قطاعا كباقي القطاعات من حيث العائد بالنسبة للاستثمار، لأن فيه مش بزنس موديل قوي، يعني مش غير جاذب للاستثمار، لأنه ليس هو قطاع اجتماعي واقتصادي، طبعا غير قابل للمقارنة مع مشاريع الطاقة مثلا. طبعا التنسيق بين القطاعات عنصر مهم أشار إليه الدكتور أمجد، ولكن أشار كذلك إلى نقطة مهمة وهي التنسيق بين المانحين. أعتقد أن على مستوى المنطقة لازلنا نعاني من صعوبة إيجاد التمويل المشترك بين مانحين مختلفين، سواء تعلق الأمر ببنوك التنمية أو بالآليات المستجدة والمبتكرة للتمويل. يعني أنا لا أدعي أنني غطيت ما ذكره الدكتور أمجد في هذه المداخلة الغنية والمفيدة، والتي نريد أن نأخذ منها على الأقل 3 أو 4 نقاط كتوصيات في نهاية هذا اللقاء الطيب. باسمكم جميعا أشكر مرة ثانية الدكتور أمجد على حضوره معنا رغم كل الالتزامات داخل ضمن عمله. فشكرا دكتور أمجد مرة ثانية. طبعا معنا مداخلة كذلك مهمة ومهمة جدا من البنك الإسلامي للتنمية، وهو من أكبر شركاء الدول في المنطقة في قطاع المياه والصرف الصحي والمعالجة وإعادة الاستعمال بوجه خاص. معنا الأخ والزميل والصديق نزار زيد من البنك الإسلامي للتنمية، جلوبال ليد فور ووتر في القطاع الاجتماعي والبنيات التحتية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية في البنك الإسلامي. نزار, I'm not sure I have translated your affiliation within the bank correctly. I apologize if I do. So the floor is yours, Sir Nizar, please.
شكرا جزيلا أخ حمو وشكرا أخ خلدون. And we thank also the other partners, the Arab Water Council and the UN Habitat for this invitation. And before starting my presentation, I have to confess something, that I did not contact Dr. Mejdi in advance, but to coordinate actually with him. But you will see a lot of similarities and reinforcement actually of the points he shared with you in his presentations. So apologies to my colleagues for this maybe kind of repetition, but it tells us something actually, that the donors think in the same way actually when it comes to financing the water sector. So with this, I wanted just to share with you the presentation, which is built around 4 building blocks. First of all, we talk about water financing needs. Then we talk about building the case for financing water and wastewater. What are the models for financing the water sector? And we will finish the presentation by a few slides about telling you what IDB and what IDB is doing in the sector, is doing in general and in the sector. What the sector needs actually, as I said, and it was said in the previous presentation by my colleague, Dr. Amjad, is that water is still a challenge globally, and the water demand is expected to exceed supply by 40% approximately. These are the forecasts. And of course, the problem with sanitation is quite serious, because we are consuming water and not treating it and sending these to the receiving bodies, which means actually we are polluting the existing resources. So we have already, particularly in our region, limited resources, and we are polluting even these limited resources with the wastewater. So this is a problem, I mean, quite serious problem. And we know that, and it was mentioned by my predecessor about the financial needs. The SDGs are actually much wider than the MDGs. MDGs, as we remember, for those who are old enough in the sector, they know that the MDGs were concentrated on access basically, but the SDGs have a much broader scope, if you want. So, and with this means actually much greater funding is required, and we need to bring in the private sector definitely. In addition to, so when we talk about the needs, the sector needs, when I'm talking about 6.1 and 6.2, actually there was a study published by our colleagues from the World Bank in 2016, and it tells us actually that the needs for the sector represent about 114 billion a year, $14 billion a year. This represents about 39.39% of the global product. Here it's the combined global product of 140 countries which were used at the study. So these countries have, I mean, globally they have to spend 0.39% of their global product basically for the sector to achieve the SDG 6 and 6.1 and 6.2 more specifically, yeah. And the current spending is about 0.12, which means there is a large gap of 0.27%, as I said, for reaching the what is required to finance the sector. When we go to the split actually of the same number, 114 billion divided by urban and rural areas and between the different subsectors, we realize that the sanitation actually is the largest and this is in link with our discussion today. Yeah, sanitation is the largest source actually. I mean, the largest is the area where there is the largest need, particularly in urban areas. So 60% of estimated costs, including 40% for urban sanitation alone. So this is what we wanted to share. So the previous slide was given us what's happening about water, basic sanitation, etc. Whereas here we are talking about the split between urban and rural areas, and we can see and we know what's happening in terms of urbanization, how populations all over the world are moving to urban areas, and of course they are creating there are serious problems of sanitation in these countries. If we take the example of sub-Saharan Africa, the needs are much larger actually in sub-Saharan Africa. They are about 0.64 because as I would say, Africa is coming from long distance, from far away, from a worse situation than the average of the world. So it needs actually to spend 0.64% of the global the global product, actually the gross product for the gross regional product, sorry, GRP, gross regional product. It's 0.64% compared to the average I have just mentioned earlier, which is about 39 for the rest of the world. Now, and if we look at our region, we look at the situation when it comes to particularly, of course, my colleague and we all know, I mean, that how is the water scarcity problem in our region, and we can see, for example, when it comes to water daily consumption, this is really in the high range. We consume maybe 250 to 400 liters per capita per day. And this is particularly true for the rich countries in the region, and of course this is much larger than the rest of the world, which consume much less water actually when it comes to the daily consumption. For example, we can take the example of Denmark. They only use 112 liters per capita per day. UK is 146. So we know what is the situation. And the thing is that we, as I said earlier, we are using all this water, but we discharging it without any form of, almost with any form of treatment. If we look at this slide, actually, of every cubic meter of fluent generated, actually, almost 60%, the major portion of it is discharged without any form of treatment. And this is quite a serious problem. Well, it could be also a problem, but it's also, it could be considered as an opportunity if we treat adequately this wastewater and we make reuse of it in other different sectors, for industries, for example, or for irrigation, for certain type of limited irrigation. So as I said, almost 60% is discharged without any form of treatment. I'm starting from the almost 1/4 is treated and discharged, which is good, and 18% is treated and reused. So only 1/5 actually of wastewater in the region actually generated is treated and reused. And we really we need really to increase that part of the of that proportion and to make use of it, as I said, moving from a challenge to an opportunity. Now, why do we need to finance the water sector? I mean, what's the economic case for water financing the water and wastewater? Just some numbers actually to really, which are striking. You know that poor sanitation and hygiene lead to 675,000 premature deaths annually. It's quite a large number. This is worldwide. Water related issues in agriculture, health, income, etc., could result in as much as 6% GDP reduction in GDP by 2050 in some regions of the world, particularly in our region. Again, the annual economic loss, they have been estimated at 260 billion due to inadequate water supply and sanitation. 260 billion. It's almost the GDP, I think, of Saudi Arabia. US dollar 120 billion are the losses due to urban property flood damage. You know, we know what's happening every day. There are damages, and we saw, probably you must have seen this yesterday. There were in Australia actually, where there were very, very serious floods, and even they had casualties. And this is like happening to yesterday. I mean, very, very recent. And also it happens in our region. So the urban flood property floods are creating annual damage of about 120 billion. water insecurity for irrigators, for farmers. It creates also it's another source for losing income, but almost 100 billion. And it was also shown on a slide in the previous presentation by Amjad, is the best benefit cost ratio for investment in the sector is 7:1, which means in developing countries. So which means for every dollar spent on water and sanitation, we can get about $7 in benefits which is quite substantial. What are the different models for financing the water sector? Actually, we as you can see on this slide, normally what the sector needs, if we are having a project in the water sector, usually there are three elements, which are the investment costs, maintenance costs, and operating costs. For example, if we talk about water utility or water and sanitation utility in the region, if to link this with aqua. Now, of course, when it comes to the revenues, there are what we call the 3 T's. These were defined by the OECD a few years ago, and these are what we call the 3 T's: transfers, taxes, and tariffs. Transfers essentially refer to ODA, overseas development assistance, basically or bilateral assistance coming from outside to the sector. This is one. Second, the taxes. The second source of revenue are the taxes, which are actually the subsidies usually given by the governments to their water utilities, because unfortunately majority of these are not making losses, basically. And the third element are tariffs, which means how much we are billing for the water, and usually water and sanitation, because in some countries the water and the sanitation bill are combined. So these are the sources of revenues. And when we talk about the market-based finance, basically, or repayable finance or commercial finance, it usually have three elements: commercial loans, it has bonds, and it has equity, taking equity in this. So these elements with the concessional, including grant element, concessional financing, and this is actually usually coming from MDBs, for example, from it could be the GCF. This I'm referring to the green portion of the right side of the slide. So traditionally, Bank of Repayable Finance for water came from concessional finance, i.e. from development finance institution with some grant element. So we have the concessional, the non-concessional, commercial loans, bonds, equity, etc. And these are usually trying to help in reducing the financing gap for the water sector. Now, if we talk about commercial finance, I mean, that part, it has actually some pros, it has some cons. I mean, there are positive aspects and there are negative aspects. I will try quickly to summarize these. First of all, if you use commercial finance, you reduce the sovereign debt. I mean, if utility, for example, and Amman goes and borrows money from the local market, for example, it means that the government of Jordan will not have to borrow money for that utility and pass into the utility. So it helps reduce the sovereign debt. And of course, there is when there is such financing, there's lack of political interference, which means the board and the management of the company can make the decisions in a free way, more independently, I would say. And of course, it leads the management and the board to focus on customers, and it introduces what we call the discipline of the markets, because you are dealing with the private sector, so you have to be to be straightforward and work with the market discipline. And of course, it helps meeting the universal access and the SDGs. Here again, better use and targeting for public resources, which means if a country has limited borrowing capacity and they have usually competing needs, it could be health, it could be education, it could be water, it could be infrastructure, it could be transport, etc. So of course, if we can go to get to the commercial markets, it helps actually freeing up resources from the for other sectors. Now the cons, I mean, it has also some other aspects. The costs are higher, if you compare it, for example, to development finance I mentioned earlier, and especially if it has some grant element, the costs of borrowing are higher, and they are more complicated actually to mount and to understand and to deal with. Affordability could be a problem for some utilities because the interest rates, as I said, are higher. The tenor, I mean the tenor and the grace periods, etc., the duration of the repayment period are longer. So it could be also a disadvantage to some extent. And of course, another aspect is the availability, and it was alluded to. That's why I had to apologize to you, because my colleague also mentioned this, the underdeveloped capital markets, particularly when we talk about local markets, local financial markets. Sometimes they're underdeveloped, so which means the financing is not necessarily available. Now, what are the barriers for financing the WASH sector investments? Again, WASH infrastructure calls for high initial investment and long payback period. I mean, that's the point. I mean, if we are building a dam, or if we are laying pipes, or we are building a water treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant, it requires a lot of financing, and the payback period is quite long. This is one. Second, usually there are some high standards in terms of stringent standards in terms of quality, you know, either of water or wastewater, etc. But however, when it comes to the cost, actually, which you can charge, which you can bill to the users, is quite low. It's quite small, actually. It's minimum. So which means the profits are minimal. That's really, it could be a problem, limiting the flow of cash to the sector. Also, and we know, I mean, everybody knows the story. Actually, people think that, you know, water is given from Allah, you know, it's my right. So people are not really necessarily willing to pay for the water, and it undermines actually the project cash flows. And by the way, they are not willing to pay for the water, but they tend to forget that there is the service for the water itself, you know. Okay, it's true that it rains and water comes either from underground or from the sky, but there is there is a service for collecting this water, for treatment, for treatment and distributing, etc., and it comes with a cost. And we're talking about the willingness to pay. If it is low for water, it's worse for sanitation. I mean, usually households are not very keen on paying for sanitation services. More for water because, well, it's without water we cannot survive, basically. And then, of course, when we talk about the commercial financing, the decisions actually are geared towards profitability and do not consider the holistic approach to the water sector, considering other health and environmental benefits or other health environmental externalities. When it comes to rural areas, and this is another bottleneck, actually, that the projects are usually small, and they are really limited, context specific. So which means the transaction costs are high. So it makes the financing very costly, and also it makes the private sector not necessarily willing to go and to go into these projects. I think these are the few, actually, the bottlenecks, I would say, or what is preventing the constraints, actually, or barriers to financing the water sector in investments, in my view. Now, what is needed to attract commercial finance to WASH? How are we going to? What can we do? First of all, we have to improve the technical and financial efficiency. I mean, if you have a utility which collects only 70% of its bills, okay, and or, for example, which has, let's say, 40% non-revenue water, they are not financially viable. They are not credit worthy, basically. So they will not attract even the public sector, not even the private sector. So really, the first element to work on, actually, to be able to attract commercial finance is actually to improve the technical and financial efficiency. Now, another point, which is we have to be mindful of, that if we want to improve utility and efficiency, etc., it is a difficult process. It's it takes time. I mean, it's not, you cannot like have a consultant come in, you know, just for 2 weeks, prepare a report, organize a workshop, and boom, efficiency is there, etc. It takes a long time. It requires persistence and it requires also commitment from the different levels actually involved, the government, the community, as the citizens. So this is really another aspect really we have to be mindful of when we want to improve the attractiveness of the water utilities to private finance. Another aspect actually, if we start, I would say we have to pay particular attention to governance. Again, it was mentioned by my colleague in his concluding remarks. And again, it's very important. Governance, institutions, policies, and regulatory agencies, which should be clear, transparent, and run with integrity. This is very, very important. This sends very, very positive signals actually to the private sector, and also to even to the public sector when we are financing projects. And another aspect which is very important here is to start what I would call the low-hanging fruits. If we want to in the long term to attract attract private finance, we should start with domestic markets. I mean, this is like because usually the income, the revenues of the utilities are in local currency. So it's easier to show these commitments and not to run into problems with hard currency exchange, etc., and the hard currency devaluation, etc. So it's better to start with the local domestic markets, assume that of course they are relatively developed, and then start with the quick wins. Basically, folks initial actually investments on quick wins, on activities with rapid impact, which can regenerate revenue and which could be used actually to pay back, to ring fence the financing and to pay back private financier, for example. And to build investor confidence. Actually, you know, we have this like quick wins, first success stories, if you want, and based on that, you can attract more financing because people will trust you, will believe on you, and will be more willing to continue the relationship and to lend you more and more. For example, if we work on reducing the revenue water, a small action with the local market, okay, and we can achieve good results and first results, this will be very, very helpful to attract more finance and to continue to get actually in what I would call the virtuous circle, you know, going from a vicious circle, losing resources, losing customers, poor quality of service, etc., to virtuous circle where we can generate resources, where the customer satisfaction is good, and then of course generating, improving the revenues and the technical and financial situation of the company. Now, just a few slides before concluding, and I hope I'm not taking too much. Dear Hammu, the Islamic Development Bank, for those who are not familiar with the bank, we are based in Saudi Arabia. We started our activities in 1975, and we have 57 member countries all over the world. Actually, you can see some green dots actually in Latin America and the Caribbean region, Suriname and Guyana, and we have countries like Indonesia, and we have all the North Africa, West Africa, and of course the GCC and some countries in Asia. We have 11 regional hubs, which means we work from our headquarters in Jeddah, but we have also 11 hubs in Kazakhstan, in Morocco, in Cairo, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Uganda, etc., etc. Recently we came back a month ago. We had our annual meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and during the annual meeting, the board adopted our new strategy it is interim strategy for 3 years, and it has two main pillars. One is about green, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure, and here we can see the green dimension, the water sanitation, and the climate change. I mean, actually, it's a cross-cutting basically pillar for our strategy. And the second pillar is include for human capital development, essentially health, education, and of course the SME, social protection, nutrition, food, etc. And these are very, very pertinent pillars because we see what's going on. I mean, after the COVID, we barely, recovered from COVID, and then we heard this what's happening with the food crisis, etc. So these are the two pillars, as I said, and we have some cross-cutting areas, including Islamic finance, which is the cornerstone of activity. Climate change, of course, is very important. Gender, women and youth, and then capacity development, which is also an important cross-cutting area for our activities. What is specific about the Islamic Development Bank, that we use Islamic modes of financing, which these are Sharia compliant, and we have basically two major modes. One, the concessional concessionary ones, TA loans, TA grants, and loans. These are common really at nominal, and we have the other modes of financing for financing projects, which we call leasing, installment sale, istisna, and equity participation, and murabaha. I mean, these are the other mode, the two branches or two broad categories of modes of financing we use when it comes to financing projects. When I talk about projects, they cover these main big themes: infrastructure, I mean, in the wider sense of the word of the term, education, of course, health, humanitarian relief, and gender equality. These are, as I said, it's not meant to be exhaustive here, just to give you an idea about what we do. Now, if we talk about our financing for the water sector, you can see how is the geographic distribution of our financing. The lion's share went to MENA, and we call it Europe. Actually, it covers Turkey and Albania. They took almost 60% of our financing for the water sector. Sub-Saharan Africa got 1/4 basically, and we are defined here Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America, which means the two countries I mentioned earlier, Suriname and Guyana. And we have also 17% went to Asia covering Central Asia, covering Southeast Asia, Indonesia, etc., and it covers also South Asia, Bangladesh, and to Pakistan, etc. Again, here when we continue on our financing for the water sector, you can see here the sector subsector distribution, and you can see that urban sanitation. I mentioned in the first slide or the second slide that it took large proportion. It's 20% actually of our financing went to urban sanitation because of the needs for the sector. It comes basically second only to water storage dams and bulk water. These are canals, and of course these are dams, canals, irrigation networks, etc. And we know that these are very capital intensive. So as I said, it comes second to urban sanitation. In terms of urban water supply, we have it's slightly lower, but this is I mean, of course it's demand driven. Last slide before I conclude my presentation, I wanted just to share with you something which will resonate with our colleagues from UN Habitat, because it's similar what they are doing, what they call the WOPs, the Water Operator Partnership, Water Operators Partnership. So we have a similar program. We call it reverse linkage mechanism actually, and it's South-South cooperation or triangular cooperation, where IDB is a broker or connector between or catalyst of financing and knowledge, etc. And we have two member countries working together. Of course, the reverse linkage mechanism is meant to be in all these sectors. It could be in health, it could be in education, it could be in any sector we can think about. But of course, we can definitely work on this for the water sector, trying to maybe link up two utilities, for example, from the region, or one from the region, another one from Sub-Saharan Africa or North Africa or wherever, working together to help build their capacities and trying to solve specific problems. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nizar, for a very comprehensive and complete picture on how the Islamic Development Bank is contributing to achieving the SDG 6, and how is this breakdown in terms of investments specifically to wastewater treatment and reuse. زياد أنا سأحاول مرة ثانية بسرعة أن ألخص ما جاء في مداخلة الدكتور زياد من الدكتور نزار سوري من البنك الإسلامي بعد عرضه لآليات أو لأهمية مختلف آليات التمويل وكيف يسهم البنك بشكل محدد في قطاع المياه مقارنة مع باقي القطاعات. طبعا بعد ذلك ركز الدكتور نزار على الفجوة الموجودة في مجال تمويل قطاع المياه وقطاع الويست واتر تريتمنت اند ريوز، وأشار إلى مختلف الآليات بناء على ضخامة الأرقام التي يحتاجها تحقيق الهدف السادس وما هي الاختلاف بين أو ما هو الاختلاف بين آليات التمويل المتاحة. وطبعا التركيز كان كذلك على أن هناك مزايا وهناك يعني صعوبات في التعامل مع التمويل التجاري بشكل عام، ذكرها نزار بشكل مفصل. كذلك المطبات الأربع أو الصعوبات الست صعوبات التي يواجهها تمويل الوش من الناحية الاستثمارية، ما هي الصعوبات التي يواجهها، وكذلك كيف يمكن استقطاب التمويل التجاري للاستثمار في المياه وإصحاحها، وبالتالي المعالجة وإعادة استعمال المياه الصرف بشكل عام. طبعا اقترح النظام كذلك حاجة جميلة، يعني أن الشروط الضرورية لاستقطاب التمويل في القطاع، يعني أن موضوع الحكامة والحوكمة وموضوع الشفافية موضوع أساسي. وأنا أعتقد أن لا بد من أن نتداول في هذه النقطة، لأنها وردت في كلمة معالي الوزير، وكلمة الدكتور أمجد وكلمة الدكتور نزار، أن موضوع الشفافية ده موضوع أعتقد أنه ركيزة أساسية لا بد أن نأخذها في الاعتبار ونحن نفكر في تمويل المرافق العمومية والاستثمار في البنيات التحتية وإعداد مشاريع قابلة للتمويل، سواء عبر البنوك التنموية أو عبر صناديق المناخ. أشار كذلك نزار إلى أن هناك استراتيجية ربما يمكن اعتمادها. أولا الاعتماد على الذات، يعني والاستفادة مما هو متاح في الكويك وينز، ثم كذلك أن يكون الانتقال مما سماه نزار، وأنا شايف أن هذه الفكرة الانتقال من الفيشيوس سيركلز للفيرتيوس سيركلز، فهذا مقترح مهم يعني من الناحية الاستراتيجية، يعني أن ننتقل من القروض إلى الاستثمار الذي يبتدئ ب طبعا الاستثمار العام أو الوطني قبل التوجه للقروض، لأن له مزايا ذكرها نزار بتفصيل أكثر. يعني مرة ثانية أشكر نزار الذي ختم العرض بمستجد يتعلق بالخطة الاستراتيجية للبنك التي تعتمد على محورين اللي هي المناعة والاستدامة بالنسبة للبنيات التحتية، ثم كذلك التنمية البشرية كركيزة ثانية لاستراتيجية البنك خلال السنوات الثلاث القادمة. طبعا بعد تصنيف آليات التمويل، وهنا أعتقد أنه سيكون كذلك ربما مقترح، وأدعو الحضور الكريم إلى ربما اقتراح توصية بالنسبة للآليات الغير الربوية للتمويل، يعني أو ما يسمى بالتمويل الإسلامي. ما هي الميزة النسبية له، وما هي الصعوبات، وما هي الإمكانيات المتاحة للدول للاستفادة منه بحكم أنه غير تجاري، وكيف يمكن للدول وللمرافق أن تستفيد من هذه الآليات بالنظر إلى ميزتها النسبية. يعني أنا سأتوقف عند هذا الحد، ولا أدعي مرة ثانية أنني قد لخصت كل شيء ورد في مداخلة الدكتور نزار من البنك الإسلامي للتنمية، الذي أجدد له شكري وأشكره نيابة عن المنظمين وعن السادة الحضور. معنا قبل الانتقال إلى الجزء الثاني معنا كانت ربع ساعة بس بقت 10 دقائق. عموما نفتح النقاش لمدة 10 دقائق. النقاش أرجو أن يكون مركزا حول السؤال، وللمحاضر أو المتحدث وعرض أو ذكر الاسم والمؤسسة بعجالة. So the floor is open. أنا أدعو السادة الحضور لطرح أسئلتهم. أهلا وسهلا لأسئلة السادة الحضور. So if there are questions from the audience, the floor is open to a few minutes discussion on issues and clarifications that probably are inspired by the four speakers we heard in this first leg of the webinar.
Mohammed, there is a Q&A notification down there, please, if you want to.
I don't see. I only see requests for presentation, and I don't see any questions so far yet. Can you see? I didn't see any questions. Sorry.
Okay.
In the chat box so far, it's only no question or comment has come through so far. So if there is no question, then I would volunteer myself to ask the.
If you want to, there are some people who are raising their hands, so I'll unmute them from here, from my position. Mr. Muhammad Sabri, if you want to, please, Muhammad Sabri. Mr. Bakr, please.
يعطيكم العافية جميعا. Good
English,
evening, good morning.
if you can, yeah, speak English.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this great webinar. شكرا جزيلا لكم على جهودكم. I just wanted to ask, because I come from the private sector, we partner with the public sector, with water utilities and with the regulatory bodies in the MENA region to support water utilities in better management for their water systems through technology, innovative financing, and social entrepreneurship. So I was wondering, and I'm reflecting on both presentations by Dr. El-Mahdi and the ISDB, the gentleman from the ISDB. So I was just wondering how the private sector can contribute to these efforts, and if it is possible at all for the private sector to somehow lead the process of getting funds from GCF or ISDB, because most of us know that sometimes the governments don't do their job efficiently or effectively. So how can we contribute as a private sector in this, like through public-private partnerships, working with NGOs and the government? We do believe in the stakeholders' engagement. So, but we also believe that taking the lead on this might provide better initiatives and better proposals for these funds. So your take on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Bakr. I think we just proceed with the answers as the questions come through. Yes, both presentations, by the way, Sir Bakr have stressed the role of private sector, and I would like to hear how to make this happen, because there is an unanimous agreement on the governments can do this alone, because it's costly and it needs efficiency in management, in planning, and in implementation. How does the bank and the GCF look into ways to engage private sector more and substantive investments in wastewater treatment and reuse specifically, because it's quite different when it comes to infrastructure for water supply. why is treatment and reuse not attracting the same amount of investments, and how and can private sector apply and be eligible for grants or loans with preferential rates, for instance? Dr. Amjad and Dr. Nizar.
Thanks, Dr. Hamu. And thanks for the question from Baker. I think it's a great question. And as Dr. Hamu put the question, it has many aspects need to be considered to address that. But I will try to summarize and make it from GCF perspective, very simple way. So at GCF, we have two mechanisms for the private sector to join us. So one, as we have the public entity need to be accredited, and in that case, any private company or any private sector need to join one of those accredited public entity. And that public entity can be also what we call it like direct access entity, which mainly become really the regional banks or the local banks as well, like ISDB, for example. And also we have a special program as well for the private sector, where the private sector by itself, any private entity can apply to become accredited entity with us. And what we mean by accredited entity, it's a type of assessment that GCF conduct based, of course, on the application for the accreditation, where it shows really that entity has the capacity to implement that project. And that including like all different aspects of implementations, including financial capacity, fiduciarity, and so on. So that the direct avenue where you can reach the GCF to do that. So you need to become as accredited entity, or you become a partner for one of the accredited entity. And for example, with private sector, we just working on, or we just approved really a project with a climate investor that focus on energy with 1.5 billion. We currently looking another project that actually looking at wastewater project. It's a wastewater as one of the key components. We call it climate investor 2, and water sector become really very much 70% from that fund. And it's around 1.5 billion project as well. And in that, really looking at the wastewater and sanitation service, and how that, again, can generate some bigger revenue. But I would like to come to the question that Dr. Hamu put it, which is really why the private sector not coming very strongly to invest in the water sector, and how we can make those projects more bankable and affordable, where it really attract the private sector. I think that the real role for a multilateral development bank or multilateral banks like GCF, for example, where we can become as using our concessionality to make that project viable and make that project economically efficient and effective, and make that project turn to become like a bankable project. So we become really invest in the first component of that project to turn it into a bankable project. And that could be through different financial instruments. That could be, again, grant. It could be a very concessional loan as well. As I mentioned, for the private sector, our concessional loan come with an interest rate 0.75%, and for 20 years to pay back with a grace period of 5 years. But of course, it can also, we can provide equity as well to ensure the money flow, for example, from local bank or from public entity to become a public-private partnership, or to give that level of guarantee as well. So we also have a guarantee as well as another financial instrument. So we have a different financial instruments, and we really happy to work with the private entity to see what is the best structure for all those financial instruments. So any project can be a mix of different financial instruments. It doesn't need to be only grant or only loan. We actually work with what is the best structure for the financial model to make that project viable. So I will stop here, and I'm sure my colleague from ISDB will add more as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amgadini. This is very, very interesting, and I think it's a call to both the private sector and the ISDB as an example to bring more of the private sector investment into reuse of treated wastewater. Nizar, I'm sure you have things to add.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I will try to make the question, the answer very brief. The easiest for us, there are two main ways actually for us to work with the private sector. One is what we call PPP. Okay, assuming, for example, that the country, and this is maybe a real life example, there's a member country, Morocco, for example, they are planning to, it's not wastewater, it's water supply actually, using renewable energy. So they advertised, they actually invited for bids investors to do that. So the investors came to us, or of course I will not be given names. They came to us actually so the bank, of course these investors are private sector definitely, and they came to us for actually taking part in this SPV, special purpose vehicle, which will be established, and the bank can contribute to this. Of course, the requirement here is actually the private sector could be either from member countries or from outside, from anywhere in the world, provided that the project is in IDB member countries, in one of the 57 member countries. And we have, by the way, had a lot of intervention in the last 10 years, I would say, essentially in desalination, and particularly in the GCC, in Qatar, and other parts of the world, in Saudi Arabia, of course, and other parts of the world, essentially, as I said, in the GCC. So first window is the PPP. Of course, here you can, there are two options also with the PPP. Either there is unsolicited proposal, which means you think that you have a good solution, so you prepare a proposal and you go to the government, to the country X, and you tell them, okay, this is what we think is good for you, etc. I would like to actually trigger the demand, basically. Yeah, so what we call a solicited proposal. Or there is another example, another case, which is a normal bid actually. So the government decides to go for a PPP. I know that also in 2017 we are about to engage with the government of Kuwait, basically, for Sulaybiyah. So they were actually thinking of extending the capacity of the water treatment, the wastewater treatment plant. I had the chance to visit this beautiful, actually, piece of art, actually. And so in that case, particularly, it's the government of Kuwait which decided and called on bidders to come to bidders, usually the private sector, as I said. So one of them approached us to see whether we will go with them for financing this operation. Another window. So one is PPP. Second, we have a private window of the bank, which is called ICD, which is Islamic Corporation for the Development of the Private Sector. For those who are familiar with the World Bank terminology, it's our IFC. It's our arm actually for financing the private sector operations. And of course here you have to present the full dossier, full file actually, and you come to our private affiliate, private sector arm, ICD, and then you study, which will study the project and then see whether it's brownfield or greenfield project, etc. And they will examine the project from different angles. Okay, so I think these are the two main windows we can work with the private sector. Of course, the third one, but it's not really the private sector. Usually, in each and every project we are doing, in our member countries, the private sector is there, because when it comes to construction, when it comes to consultancy, when it comes to, it's usually the private sector. If you are building, for example, if you provide a loan to, I don't know, to Tunisia, for example, for building the dam, the construction of the dam will be done by the private sector. Of course, in this case, the private sector will bid for public bidding, and if they are awarded the contract, it's another way for them to work with the government of Tunisia, but under financing from the Islamic Development Bank. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nizar. This is very comprehensive. There was a question on the length of the processes to apply for GCF grants, but I think, Dr. Amjad, you have clarified that partly. If you want to add a couple of words quickly to answer our colleague who is asking this question, how to make the process of access to finance in GCF a bit shorter and easier. A difficult question, I believe.
I like that. Okay. I think that what we found sometime, because we have a different process and a different approach where the entity can really approach us. So, for example, we have what we call it SAB system, or simplified approved process. And that used to be like up to 10 million project. So if you have a project that's looking up to 10 million, you can actually applying through the SAB, which it's again a very quick process. Like within a month, you receive a reply about like the concept note or the full proposal that you have applied. We actually have our board approved now SAB up to 25 million. So that again open a big door for many things can be done with 25 million for sure, and make really a real impact. And that will facilitate most of the projects to be able to be like fast track and use that opportunity of the fast process. For the other size of the project, as we call it, like the small project, which is really up to 50 million and then above, up to 250 million. So we have a process, and sometimes really it's a shared timeline, I think, between the GCF and the accredited entity. So, for example, when you send your concept note, normally within 28 days, you receive like a review and a comment about that concept note, and it's really become in the hand of the accredited entity to how quickly they will be able to really to respond to those comments. And actually, our comments, it's a very more structured comment in the way how we can make that project become, as the point you have highlighted, Dr. Hammo, under the climate rationale. So it become eligible for the climate finance, because as I mentioned during my talk, sometimes we receive projects doesn't really show any climate rationale and still requesting that climate finance. And it's really the first criteria we assess any project from concept note stage to a full proposal stage. So any project to be able really to fast track need to get the climate rationale right. If you have that package well in the concept note, that really make everything easy because it become more how you structure, how you design the project rather than what is actually the problem and what is the concept behind. So I think my advice always really to develop that climate rationale strongly and that fast track the process. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Amjad. Probably a recommendation to mention at the end of today's meeting is if Aqua, HDB, and UN Habitat could do some kind of tailored capacity development on ways to make the difference between a development project and climate projects eligible to funding. I think those are all elements that we could list at the end. أنا جاي لك دكتور المهندس خلدون عندي دقيقتين بس.
First of all questions are very valid and very important. And actually, you shortened my speech to 1.5 minutes, Mr. Hammo. Yes, I was going to say that we'll contact our friends from the funding agency, Mr. Amjad and Nizar, and other funding agency, that we can make a training program of how to develop proposals and how, according to the standards and regulation of every donor. And I think the same question was raised in ISQA when we were together. From one of our Egyptian friend, he was the Secretary General of the Ministry. We said that we can contact the donors, the funding agents, and do that. The second question for private sector, I think also we have very good program for private sector participation, and we can also have a small webinar about talking about which type of private sector participation needs. Bringing private sector, because private sector, they are making lending money.
Driven by
In one of the projects in Jordan, the return on interest was 11.41. In my presentation, I will put new ideas of how the country and the funding agents can make co-funding. So I think the last point, I think during to lack of time now, translation, we can make it very short. Okay, Hammo Habibi.
Let's skip it if there is any need for it.
Unless some people in French they need.
Well, let's see what will happen in the chat box. If people feel that there is a need for translation, we can move on with it. Otherwise, we will make it on demand.
Yeah.
Apsu is, I think Apsu is in Iraq, and I think there is a proposal, not a question, on the need to make decision-making processes inclusive, to have government agencies, private sector, and users and stakeholders aside from water utilities. This is probably a proposal for a recommendation on the need to make decisions on wastewater treatment and reuse inclusive and participatory as much as possible. أديات قديمة أعتقد دكتور مهندس خلدون.
Okay, APSO is our partner with Aqua. They are representing the good NGO from Iraq. They are supported by the Iraqi government. And APSO in the old, I think, Kildani language, he is the god of water, or she was the god of water. So we are in contact with them for any needs, and we'll approach you. Don't worry.
Well, what we are making is the proposal to make the mechanisms inclusive and participatory. I think with this we have consumed our 15 minutes quickly. I had more questions to both Nizar and Amgad myself, but unfortunately this will be probably set in the freezer for the next opportunity to listen to you and to learn from you. And again, I would quote Nizar on this. We think of water sector finance as being donor-driven. It's not. So the bulk of the money invested in this sector is government money. It's public money. So what the donors are bringing is a small portion of the big chunk. So I'm quoting you.
Quoting me from last week, huh?
So I'm quoting you from a fresh event when you mentioned this. So, but I think this is really something to highlight and to keep in mind while working towards external finance, be it donation, grants, loans, or commercial banks. One has to keep in mind that it's still little money compared to the huge investment that the governments are making to improve the performance of the sector, and particularly for wastewater treatment and reuse. With this, we are done with the first part of the first leg of the webinar. We move now into the second part, that is a 45 minutes, and hopefully we can stick to the time to answer the question: where are we? That's what the purpose of this part of the session is, starting with His Excellency Mr. Tawfiq Al-Shorjbadi, Minister of Water and Environment in the Republic of Yemen, and of course, member of the Board of Directors in Aqua. Financing for water and wastewater utilities. Where does Yemen stand on this, particularly in conflict and fragility? That is a very close topic to my heart. معالي الوزير لكم الكلمة.
شيلي لا لا توفيق.
Your Excellency, Mr. Tawfiq. Dr. Tawfiq, it's your turn to talk.
دقيقة واحدة بس الآن.
أروى احنا بننتظر تداخلكم. أهلين.
دقيقة بس.
اوكي.
نقدم عرضنا الآن يا باشمهندس.
هو الدكتور حمو هو قدم معاليه وتفضلوا. صحيح؟
تفضل معالي الوزير.
نعمل شير بس سكرين. نقدم الآن بنقدم الآن الورقة حقنا. ممكن باشمهندس توفيق معالي
تفضل. تفضلي حضرتك.
عفوا معذرة النت شوية عندنا ضعيف. على العموم المهندسة أروى بتعرض الورقة الخاصة بالوزارة في اليمن. تفضلي أروى.
شكرا. طبعا هنا معانا بيكون عرض سريع عن وضع حسب الاوتلاين اللي معانا. تكلم عربي ولا انجليزي؟ انجليزي. اوكي. Now we are going to present our case study in Yemen. So we can go to three major facts in Yemen. The first of all, it's the fact before and during current war. محمد الثالث. محمد. بعده. Yes, the main outline of our presentation to present fact and the impact of war on our services and what is the
sorry for interrupting, but we are not seeing the presentation. So please, if you press escape button and go slide by slide, it's okay for us. Yeah, like this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And the third measure, it will be the financing in the wastewater investment option. Next, here we just put very quick. This is our Yemen, and you know it is around 500,000 kilometers square and 30 million the population of Yemen. We have here some water and sanitation fact period to the war, where our services was very. It is. I cannot say it is a very good, but it is in a good situation. If we make a very quick compare between what's the world average and the MENA region and the minimum food sufficiency in Yemen, you will see here Yemen is the lowest. We are under the poverty line of in the water, and we are the worst, maybe the second worst in the world in our resources, where we are depending only on the rainwater or in the groundwater and the aquifer system. And it was before the war 75 cubic meter per capita per year, while it is supposed to decrease to 55 cubic meter per capita per year in 2030. And if you see here the services level and the services of water and sanitation in the public corporation or local water authorities, it was before in the urban areas around 65%, and in the rural area it's 44%, while the sanitation is 31% and 21%, which indicates how the services level is still so far from the SDG goal and the other world goals. So if we look here at this fact after the war, and we can make a very quick compare between 2014 and 2017, we will see the degradation is very obvious, where the services in the water service was around 68%, and nowadays is 59%, and it is also increasing more and more between 4 to 10% more than 50, and we can say that it is around 49% now, where the situation has become worse due to the prolong of the crisis, and there is no enough resources, and we don't have even the financial resources is not enough. In the sanitation, the situation...
مهندس أروى لو تفضلتي السلايد ما بتمشيش، يعني حضرتك في سلايد ثانية ولا في نفس السلايد لسه؟
Okay, I am very sorry. Yes, I am sorry.
يا ريت لو حضرتك تكرمت كمان وحطيتي العرض على الشاشة المكبر، يعني.
أحط العرض على الشاشة محمد؟
تقريبا. لا، اللي جنبها بالعكس.
اوكي.
اللي جنبها فيها زي الكوباية، نضغط عليها عشان تكون الشاشة كلها. ميرسي.
next. بعده. Okay, now I am here. I think, do you follow me now? I'm sorry for this inconvenience.
لا مش مشكلة مهندسة الفضيلة، بس رجعنا للسلايد الأول تقريبا، يعني يا ريت لو نرجع للسلايد الثالث أو الخامس أو الرابع. الخامس.
Okay. رقم 5 محمد. I think this is you already. I have some. Now we are here. I think the water and wastewater fact after current war. Shall I repeat before war or it is okay?
لا خلاص يعني.
It is okay. Now, if you see here, you can see very clear the situation how degraded from 2014 to 2017 and getting worse now in 2021, where it was 68 in the water sector, become 59, and nowadays we are talking about 2021. It's become 10% less than 59%. This is for the water. In the sanitation, the situation it's getting worse and worse. Most of the sewer network and the wastewater treatment plant, it is out of working, is not working. The outages, the network, and also it's become even not 44. It will be 34 now, around between 4 to 10 in this range. And I think it is more worse, but there is no any real assessment to know the exact figure. But this is according to some studies carried out, it's give us this figure. The most of the, here you can see the geographic of Yemen, it is very spread wide. And there is around 25 local corporation. This is decentralized, and they have some water utilities and branches. They are covering the water and sanitation, and they are barely or hardly can cover or can work or sustain to keep the water services and sanitation in acceptable.
مهندسة أروى، أنا آسف مرة ثانية، إحنا اللي بنشوفه دلوقتي هي سلايد نمبر 3 وحضرتك في سلايد نمبر 6.
I think there is a problem in the internet.
يا ريت نحط سلايد نمبر 6 بدل نمبر 3 لأن
because of the internet problem it is delayed. Sorry.
لا كده ممتاز، يعني تفضلي.
أخي حمو أختي أروى، خلينا نشير من عنا ونساعدك ممكن؟
يا ريت افصل
يلا يلا بسرعة، أنا صار لي فترة بدي أحكي بس ما أعطيتوني مجال. أمسك الميكروفون وما أتركوش.
يا بطيء على ما يوصل عندهم.
يلا يلا، هاي وي ار شيرينج ات من عندنا، معلش، واحنا بنتبع معك. هاي المهندس مهدي، اطلبي منه افتحها كامل يا
كده
اطلبي
ممتاز.
من المهندس مهدي لما بدك تنتقلي من عندنا. اوكي، سلايد لسلايد، تفضل. يلا
next one please.
اوكي
yes
next.
هاي ولا اوكي؟
اللي بعدها يا باشمهندس.
يلا اللي بعدها. اوكي
اوكي لا not okay. Okay I can explain.
يلا، انت لما بدك تنتقلي اعطينا ايعاز، احنا بامرك.
اللي بعده لو سمحت. next please. حقهم القاعة الزوم من عندهم مش من عندنا. طلعت المشكلة عندك يا باشمهندس. اوكي انا بسترسل وتابعوا بعدين الشرايح. اوكي طبعا اوكي now we can say it is 50.4 million people are in need for assistance including 8.7 million people in acute need for water and services. This is according to the United Nations reports and humanitarian reports. And also the share of the person in Yemen in the urban area, it's about 41 liter per capita per day, which consider is very low. If we are looking to the standard, it is around 120 liter per capita per day, but the Yemeni people in the urban area receiving 41, while the people in the rural area, it's around 20 liter per capita per day, which give a very big burden on the shoulder of the government, and all the people are working in the WASH sector. How we can guarantee a good and a proper investment to improve the situation. Next, please. Yes, now according to the DNA in the World Bank Yemen Dynamic Need Assessment, you can see here very quick, this chart show the percentage of the damage in the infrastructure in Yemen related to the water and sanitation sector, where if you see here the house connection, the wells, water network, water treatment plant, most of them, or it's around, we can say 60% is damaged or partially damaged, or not functionally. The function only is around 20, between the maximum in the house connection, it is 60%, while in the total, if you see to the overall total, it is around 21% is functioning only, while the rest is between not functioning or partially functioning. This is the situation here. Next, please. Now, the average price of fuel put a lot of burden on the shoulder of the water service or the service provider. It's become, you are running too fast. So this, please, before. So here you can see the increment of the price of fuel, and also related to the water. The people, they are buying the water, it's increase. Next, please. Next. For the current situation, some current fact in the water impact, or the current war in the water impact, we have some 3 or 4 or 5 major issue. One of them is the utilities is affected very fast through direct damage or indirect, according to the financial problem, economic situation. The collapse, there is full collapse for electricity sector in Yemen. It's put their shadow on the water sector, where most of the water sector depending on the national water electricity. The water production, it's become seriously hampered, where there is a lot of problem and issue relating to the production of water and the quantity of water and the quality, both of them. The total revenue, it's significant. The water charges to the private raised 6 times. And for the sanitation sector, we have a lot of problem. It's similar. The main issue, it is the electricity issue and the interruption of the power supply, which put the sector in the dire need for the fuel, which cost very fast. Most of this network, it is very old, outaged, and also damaged during the war. Rapid population growth, urban expansion, rural migration, returnees from the Arab Gulf, spread of disease and the cholera and the other factor, and all of this, the weakness of the governance and management of this of our organization and sector. This is the main issue. Maybe we can very clear put a lot of burden in our shoulder. For the opportunity, we can say we have some opportunity to discuss. For the current challenge, for example, the current challenge in getting investment in the water sector and sanitation, it is very critical, where some of these big loan or fund and development projects is stopped or frozen or termination even. So we have here around 63 million. It is stopped for with difference. Some of them it is Islamic Bank, some of them it's Arab Bank, and the other Saudi fund. And all this project now, it is not working, stopped from working. No, we cannot do anything because it's not easy to get fund for such a project. We have some financial constraint due to the limited and no sustain. Next, please. Due to the limited and no sustainable fund. Now we are in the war situation under the humanitarian fund. Or most of the fund it's coming, it is humanitarian or emergency. So most of the intervention or the project, it's become emergency to solve a small problem or to react or to keep the system in place, not to failure or to collapse. But it's not really good, give a good investment to build and to rehabilitate or for new expansion or for new projects even. Some cities in Yemen, the network, it's since 60s or since 50s. So the investment is very huge. Most of the sanitation project in Yemen, it is a mega project. So they need a very huge initial investment. And this is also affect, according to the humanitarian fund now, or recovery, we cannot, they cannot cover such a project. The sanitation project also, the donor put a lot of restraint, precondition, and they put requirement. So to invest or to rebuild or to rehabilitate even any sanitation project, you need to have a wastewater in place, you need to have environmental and social guard, and you have so many preconditions which make our situation hard. For the finally, one of our challenge now, it's become since 3 or 4 years, is the climate change and its impact in our network and in our system, the whole system, where our system is designed for sanitation to receive a lot of precipitation, flood, make our system is very hard to sustain or to continue. The wastewater and the investment option, opportunity. To have this is one of our proposal, that to have financing that to get or to attract or to approach the financing fund to have for sanitation project, which will enable us to do only sanitation without any restriction for humanitarian or for emergency, and will improve this. You cannot improve the health and the population and the environment without having a good water and good sanitation services. So to have some sanitation project could help to improve the health and the environment in the cities. Adapt and support renewable system, which will help us to avoid the money or the investment go for the energy sector to use it in the water and in the sanitation sector. And finally, I think support power, energy, and integrated and adapt also energy power or energy saving technique in the water and sanitation project in rural area or even in urban will be added value to reduce the cost of our expense. Finally, the institutional support, and this is what we missed since 7 or 8 years since the war started, and most of our institution needs for institutional support, for capacity building, for new system, automatic, and the other. This is our situation and this is our opportunity. Thank you very much, and please feel free to ask any question.
شكرا مهندسة أروى. شكرا معالي الوزير. Thank you for presenting this particular context, which is not particular worldwide. Conflicts and fragility, challenges to the performance of water utilities, but also the implications of issues related to business continuity based on the donors. So the humanitarian situation, including the rehabilitation of the infrastructure and access to water and sanitation in Yemen, is a call to adopt a specific approach to issues of wastewater treatment and reuse in those countries. Yemen, in Syria, in Libya, countries in armed conflicts or recovering from armed conflicts need a special reflection on what is needed for those countries in terms of humanitarian, in terms of recovery, and in terms of the nexus humanitarian sustainable development transition. The needs are huge. The needs are not only infrastructure, but they are also institutions, and they are critical to people's life. We need to probably dedicate some specific reflection in the future. This is a call to Aqua, to UN Habitat, to have a dedicated event to recovery from armed conflicts in the region, issues in achieving SDG 6 in general, and in treatment, in collection, treatment, and reuse of wastewater. We only have some 20 minutes, and we have actually 2 presentations. I would like to ask for your indulgence, the Muhandis Khaldoon and Mr. Raji Darwish. If you can make it 10 minutes, that would be highly appreciated, to leave the room for some discussion. أنا شايف أن في يد المهندس خلدون.
Yes. Before starting, if it is my presentation now, but before that, I would add some few things about the Yemeni case. I
quickly مهندس خلدون لأنه
very quickly. I have visited Yemen last month for 5 days, and I had the meeting with my friend and other colleagues, friends from Yemen. And we have the honor to meet also the Prime Minister, Dr. Mu'in Abdel Malik. And now Aqua is under a process of developing an elementary business plan after we made risk assessment in Yemen on the ground, where the attendance of this workshop were 37 people from top, middle, and operational people in the field, and plus training needs assessment. I think this document will be, hopefully after Eid, will be ready. And we are concentrating, as Arwa said, on the institutional reform that will make quick recovery for the water sector over there. And I agree that we have to shift a little bit from the humanitarian help to some institutional and setup help. Once it is ready, we can also talk with all the donors, and His Excellency is very active in that. The good thing, there are 2 commitments there. On the political level and on the staff level, they are committed to help their country and try to help their people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Aqua for taking this up and supporting our colleagues and friends in Yemen to bring back the sector to its best and to respond to the needs of our brothers and sisters in Yemen. I will start with Mr. Raji Darwish. If you can please make your presentation a 10 minutes, it will be highly appreciated as we need some time for the audience to intervene. So the floor is yours, Sir Raji.
Dr. Raji, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Hammou. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very much so.
Can you see my beautiful face? Okay. I know that we are so tired, pressured in time, and therefore I will try to make it as swift as I can, but allow me to stress only on some issues in this. But before starting, I would like to really thank, I'm really glad to be here today. And can you see my presentation, sir? Dr. Hammou?
It's there. It's uploaded. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to thank Mr. Khaldoun, Engineer Khaldoun and Aqua for inviting me. And really, I would like to commend them for a well-picked Aqua and UN Habitat for a well-selected topic with its 3 subtopics, and really it's a vital things. I think that I have to thank my previous colleagues who speaks. They saved me a lot of troubles in terms of the statistics they provided, and therefore make my argument easier. Why? Because actually this is going to be a bit untraditional kind of presentation, as I will show in a minute. And at the same time, I would like to thank Dr. Hammou for his excellent sum up for everything. How much you'll give me additional minute for this compliment? Okay. Now, having said that, no more? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
About this presentation, I thought at the beginning of, should I bring a kind of a neat mathematical modeling of one of my papers and show how much wastewater in the present reservoirs and bonds will increase objective function of the status quo freshwater to higher income, triple NBVs and PCR of 9 and so forth, or go to the hard way and try to express my concern as economist about what we are really facing in this challenging endeavor of water reuse. So to keep that in mind, there is a joke. President Biden was sitting in one of the military parade in the United States, and here are the missiles, and there is the rockets, and here are the SEALs and the Navy, etc. And at the end of the parade, there was 4 gentlemen with blazers sitting in a jeep. And the president looked to the Minister of Defense and tell him, "What are those?" They said, "Sir, they are most destructive weapons. They are for economists." So this is all. Okay? Economists can make your life easier. Economists can make your life trouble. And I think Mr. Nazar and Dr. Amgad and His Excellency from Yemen will agree with that. So I don't have a study case with a problem, objectives and methodology and results to present here. I have economic notes coming from really my practical involvement over 30 years in this domain of freshwater and wastewater, and from my observations and the things. So some of my notes will be expressing concern. There is no solution will be provided here. It's a shared thoughting type of presentation, and I will try to make it in 8 minutes now because Dr. Hammou is really counting on me. Okay, now the outline quickly is that water scarcity versus water reuse, basic element of sustainable water reuse system, and data improvement for water and water reuse, and then investing in wastewater system, water reuse systems. Why? And then financing water reuse system, WRS, why and how, and then can we attract private sector? And many of the argument happen about that. And then an ending word. Actually, the way I structured this way is to, in the midst of really looking at each tree and talk about the technicalities or economic visibilities or soil and blah, 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 health concern and so forth, we tend to lose the sight of the forest. So hopefully this presentation will bring us back to the whole forest. What is the story? What is the puzzle in these things we are talking about? Simply, there are water resources depletion or scarcity. And on the other hand, there is untreated wastewater that really damage our society. So we have water stress, water scarcity in one way, and we have this kind of water polluted. And I think, again, the statistics of Dr. Nizar and Dr. Amgad saved me the trouble of doing that. This is not to consider climate change, which will make the things is really more nightmare and frightening. So can wastewater treatment provide us with a better environment in terms of recreation, agriculture, and so forth? So this is a story in sample. Having said that, it is what we are really working on it, and we are all trying to brainstorming for that. Okay, MENA region is the most scarce resource. I know that people like statistics, so very few statistics. It is, and the Arab countries are really located in the MENA region. The world average, according to the World Bank, is 7,000 per person per year or per capita, whereas in MENA region, it's 1,200. It's an average. Again, it's misleading. Skewness and statistical skewness in the per capita income amongst Arab countries is something very obvious, and we'll see in a minute now. And then on behalf, one half of the MENA population is living under water stress. And then by the year 2050, expected to be even less than 600 cubic meter. So the days of water poverty at the level of 1,000 is gone. I don't know if they will come back or not, but hopefully wastewater may bring it back to these averages. Egypt, for example, is now 570 cubic meters in 1918. So we are way ahead in terms of water scarcity as compared to others. Okay, the situation is worse, and the per capita is declining and declining and declining and still going and going and going, with the apology to Energizer commercials. Okay, now wastewater treatment, if we are action or no action, and actually the slides show very much Dr. Nizar and Dr. Amgad. The dumping of wastewater, if not properly treated, i.e. no action, so you will have health and environmental degradation and hazards. And then damaging the world various ecosystems. We all know that. And this results now, it's not preaching, but rather informing that actually in economics, we have these environmental degradation costs and health problem costs. And I will show an example of these statistics now. Okay, if treated but not used, it really with no monetary return, and therefore it put pressure on the municipalities and central government. Now, the environmental degradation, one example is that Ghanem et al. In 2020 work in the Saudi economy for treating wastewater, and they find that the environmental degradation costs directly, not indirectly, okay, was about 75% of the total amount of 600 million, more than $1 billion, $500 million. Okay, so it's really sizable. Okay, and they recommend that we have to use this in agriculture and industrial, and further promote use instead of really dumping it to the Red Sea and the Arabian Gulf. Health, there is a study happened in Egypt in which actually the VCSL, or value statistical life, in which you are talking about mortality hazards. Now I'm trying to rush things, so I need to calm down a little bit. So they find it that we estimated it to be 3 million in 1617, according to the per capita GDP at that time. Okay, we're at the average, based on the average income of 37,000. So actually, the people perceive health hazards in bad areas or hazard area like wastewater facilities, etc., etc., etc. If not properly treated in that time, it will be 82 times the average income per year, i.e. they are willing to pay that, which is actually the study here was based on CVM method or contingent valuation methods and the hedonic price theory. Okay, now conventional mechanical and chemicals are actually using a lot of money and high investment, as my colleague said, and with really no financial return. What I call it in my vocabulary, it's protect and prevent type of policy. You protect the environment and prevent from health hazards. So these are the type of policy which I name it this way myself. Again, Mr. Graham was emphasizing on the high cost of energy. And this will bring us back to the point of the conventional mechanical and chemical wastewater treatment, which actually cause labor cost and energy cost are really astronomical, especially after, of course, the Ukraine-Russian war. Okay, now, we have a solution. The technology allow us to have wastewater treatment. And here I said, by the use of adequately treated wastewater, and I have to take 30 seconds in here. For example, in many research I did before, secondary treated waste effluent, if no industrial waste, I mean heavy metals, etc., etc. If this is the nature of domestic or agriculture in which you have the highest constituent limiting factors to be nitrate and phosphorus. In that time, you go for secondary treated. Why in heaven you go to third treated and impose cost and then put this fresh water after eliminate all the nitrate and phosphorus in the land application, then come back and fertilize? So one of the things is that adequately, we have to think out of books. We have a unique situation and we have to think really out of the box a little bit. So by having kind of good planning of how much we need in agriculture, and we can really start to have a systematic structure of what to produce in what level, secondary treated, tertiary treated, advanced treatment, and so forth. Okay. To me, the basic element of any efficient and sustainable water reuse system should contain at least those. You can add two, okay? The first thing is availability of relative sizable volume of wastewater supply, i.e. economies of scale, and water reuse demand, okay? So relatively, I don't mean that there is no a kind of threshold number or something. The selection of adequate technology, not copy-paste, but transfer, customize, and then apply. Environmental impact assessment should be there. Health impact assessment should be go, and environmental impact assessment is go for this project. Economic feasibility and financial viability is very important. The availability of required funds for investment should be secure and there. By the way, it seems jargon, but I'm thankful to Dr. Amgad again and Dr. Nizar, in which they really investigate that each one of them is a hurdle by itself. Clear regulation and laws and sound institution and legal framework, proper finance system, very, very important. Availability and sustainability of the proper finance system, and then the presence of social and public acceptability. I have to say one thing here from my humble experience, which is about 30 years in these sections. we design, we plan, we determine the cost sharing value, and we never ask the people who will accept. There are some people who are not even to accept. I'm sorry, this one should be willing to accept. WTA. They are not accepting because for some people, this is bad water. The concept is there. So you are not talking about really acceptance, and you talk about willingness to pay, and therefore Dr. Nazar said that there is about 40% leakage of the tariff and fees, okay, because people really doesn't want. I want to add one thing also, that we have to measure what I call willingness to participate. There are people who are willing to accept to clean the water and accept that it can be used, but they will never participate in something like that. So willing to participate is so important also.
Rajiv,
yes, sir.
Can you please conclude, because we only have less than 10 minutes for two presentations and discussion. I'm very sorry.
Okay, so in that time, I will present two things. The most important things for us is data. And in that, we talk about last time very quickly. So I'm suggesting here a type of proposal for something called water data collection and analysis and processing unit, or DCAB. DCAB is really like decaffeinated, unlit, or whatever. The whole idea here to be quick and short and concise is that to have a central unit, it will be the brain and nerve of the water data in any part of the regions, okay? And therefore, it will search and collect, assess and verify, analyze, process, and format for making a model. It will include experts from everything. This unit will be the national unit of water data, okay? It will provide decision maker at the end of the day. You can read it by yourself so that you will not hammer me again, but I have to finish, okay? Therefore, in that time, the whole idea of DCAB is to provide decision maker with reliable, unified, and data set that can help him in planning strategy and policies. And then we go on and on, and we go on and on. And why we invest. Each one of these, look, 12, and there are at least 12, is a benefit by itself. You can market it, and you can really get new customer for that. Now, financing, I would say only one thing. In the cost sharing, it's unfair what we are doing now, and I have to speak very frankly. The people are making the cost sharing according to either willingness to pay at best, but they never talk about ability to pay. There will not be a sustainable system. There, people will not pay unless they can really pay. So this is what I want to say in this one. Now, can we attract private sector? Yes. In the macro level, I suspect that, but as Dr. Amgad say, and he really talk over and over about it and clean it everything, partner and public water-related agencies can be partnered with, yes, sir.
Dr. Raji, are you through your presentation? Or?
Yes, the micro level is small to medium. You can have, there is one thing I would end by it. Madinti in Cairo, for example, is 43 million. So you can go, private sector can go and work, operate, and invest in resorts, golf courses, compounds. And for example, this Madinti is 600,000 inhabitants, in which actually it's city by itself. And you can let the private sector go there. And thank you very much for your kind attention.
But thank you very much, Dr. Raji, and I'm very sorry to put some extra pressure on you as we get to the end of the session, and there are colleagues waiting for their interventions. We have the privilege to have with us Mr. Rajesh Advani, who's a senior infrastructure specialist in the World Bank Water Global Practice. He will inform us on what are the considerations for PPPs in wastewater specifically. Sir Rajesh, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Welcome. The
Thank you,
floor is
Mr.
yours.
Lamrani. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and it's an honor to be connected to this discussion today. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm just going to put up a short PowerPoint. I'm aware of the time constraints, so I'm going to try and go through this very quickly.
Thank you.
Mr. Lamrani, can you please kindly confirm if you can see my screen?
It's there. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go through quickly some considerations for public-private partnerships. You've had a very rich discussion around financing and private sector, so I hope I can complement this discussion over here. So first of all, I'm going to present this slide over here, which talks about really, why should you be investing in wastewater treatment and reuse? And I think this is a topic that's very well documented. Dr. Darwish, thank you for the explanation on the economic benefits. So I don't have to go into those in any sort of detail, but really you have something in the MENA region today, which is water is increasingly scarce throughout all the countries. Yemen, where we had that interesting presentation from the ministry, is one of the most water scarce countries with very little fresh, renewable fresh water resources available. And this is something that's really afflicting the region. It's getting worse with climate change, with population growth. So it's really time to think about circular water economy. So this is what we call in the World Bank water in a circular economy and resilience. And it's really founded upon having, a strong and robust institutional framework. I think that's really essential. And again, justifying from an economic perspective, as Dr. Darwish pointed out, it's very important to have strong economic justification for investing in wastewater and reuse, which means you have to really be able to value that resource in order to invest what you need to invest in wastewater treatment, supply, and reuse. In terms of public-private partnerships, a lot has been said about the potential of PPPs. And really, if you put these into two broad spectrums, the first one is the financing. Okay, so many countries are saying, well, now we have got serious fiscal constraints, especially after the COVID, etc. And so it's time to start thinking about financing through PPPs. Now, is this a good justification or not? That's a big question mark, because when you're bringing in the private sector and you expect them to come in with financing, then there has to be an ability to cover that cost, either through the tariff, through transfers, or through taxes. And we're seeing a sector increasingly under financial constraints. What PPPs can do is they can provide for off-balance sheet financing for governments. We've seen several countries in the region use this approach and then cover the cost through the cost of the payments to the private operators through guarantees from the federal governments, as is quite common in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the Gulf countries, as well as Jordan has also used a similar approach, because they, there's not so much of the revenue coming from the tariffs, so really the government has to step in and cover those costs. So there's really consideration in terms of how you structure the institutional framework, how you structure the payments, and how you guarantee the payments to the private operators. PPPs, I think, in wastewater reuse and even desalination can really bring a lot of innovation and operational performance. They sort of enhanced operational performance. You can see these contracts are structured with key performance indicators. There are penalties for non-compliance or not meeting these indicators, and then there is a reward when they exceed the target. So I think in terms of bringing operational efficiency through life cycle costing approaches, that private sector can really bring that in if your contracts are well structured. And I'm going to keep coming back to this point about the contracts. Of course, they come with significant risks. As I talked about the financing earlier on, I mean, if you're doing build, operate, transfer contracts, then you have a public entity that is undertaking or committing to buy whatever is being produced by the private operator. So you either have an off-taker agreement, or you have somebody paying for the cost of the service. And if we see, as I'll explain, in terms of the tariff in the region, if this approach continues with very low tariff environment, then it's going to have to be the governments paying for the contracts. The objectives, it keeps going down to the contract. Are the KPIs in the contract and the structure of the contract, does that really conform to your government's objectives and the objectives of the contracting authority? And I think it's very key to have those two things aligned, because then you will work towards achieving your development objectives, your development outcomes, if you're aligned. If these are badly aligned, then the public is going to suffer, because you're paying for something that is not working towards achieving your objectives. And we've seen very many failed PPPs in this area, especially in the transport sectors, is a good example where we have some quite poorly performing projects. There's also, of course, a risk of significant conflict. So during the procurement process and the award of the contract, a lot needs to go into analyzing that contract, making sure that there's risks are shared between both parties, and everything that's going to come down to that contract. So it's really advisable to have strong advisors, legal advisors, financial advisors, procurement advisors working with the contracting authority to make sure that these contracts are in the interest of the government and the contracting authority. And finally, of course, there's the fiscal burden, and this is a big question, because when the central government provides guarantees, then those become contingent liabilities for the government. So you have to make sure that if you're going into PPPs, there is adequate risk transfer. Why would you do this if the government is taking all the risk? If the government has a good credit rating and government undertakes to pay, you can easily attract the private sector. But you have to get benefit being a government authority yourself. So I think it's very important to make sure that those contracts are structured in a way that transfer a certain amount of risk to the private sector, and that then the reward that's being paid to them is commensurate with the risk that they're taking. In terms of really essential conditions, it's three things. One thing is good governance. You cannot ever underestimate the importance of having good governance within the sector. You have the line ministries that are responsible for sector planning, management of the resource, institutional frameworks, etc. And so are these in such a way conducive to having private sector contracts? So that's kind of the first step. The second thing is really the regulation. So you have regulation by contract, which is quite common in Francophone countries. And then you have independent regulation agencies, which is more of a model that's more Anglophone. And so if you see, I mean, the important thing here is to really make sure that you have an authority that's regulating the service for quality and price, and that there is transparency and fairness in the system, and that the private operator feels that if they're, in the case of a dispute, there's an authority that they can go to that will be fair in taking its decision regarding that particular dispute. And then finally, as I mentioned, in terms of the remuneration, this remuneration needs to be linked with performance. And again, cannot underestimate the importance of having strong capacity in the contracting authority. I mean, you have to, if you have very strong negotiating capacity is required in dealing with private operators that are very seasoned in dealing with governments. They're very big companies with corporate resources, etc. So across the table, it's always advisable to bring in whatever support you can to help the contracting authorities in making sure that there's value for money in issuing these PPP contracts. Now, in terms of transaction structure, I'm showing here what I would consider a simple transaction structure, in which you have an awarding authority that awards a PPP contract, and you have tariffs that are adequate to pay for the cost of the service. So what's going to happen here is that the special purpose vehicle, which is the company that's created by the consortium that is awarded the contract is able to generate, is able to access commercial financing from banks, and it's also able to bring in its own equity. Then it contracts an EPC contractor, engineering, procurement, and construction contractor to build out the facilities, and then it commits to operating the facilities for a certain number of years, typically 20 years, 30 years. And then it is also responsible for collecting tariffs from the consumers. Okay, in this case, it has to be financially sustainable. If it is financially sustainable, there may not be guarantees required from the federal government and external parties. But if it's not financially sustainable, then what happens is you come into a more complex transaction structure. And of course, here you have an example of all three agencies of the World Bank. You have the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development of the World Bank providing partial risk guarantee. You have the International Finance Corporation also providing partial guarantee to the private entity, and then you have MIGA, Multinational Investment Guarantee Agency, that's providing a guarantee to the external partner that's coming into the country. So there are various ways to structure these payments, but you have to make sure, first of all, the first starting point, as the point that Dr. Darwish talked about, is the economic viability of the project. If the project is not economically viable, then nobody should even consider going ahead with it. The second question he raised about ability to pay. In all the studies that you do, you have to look at the social impact studies. You have to look at the social impacts. Who's going to pay for the service? Is it affordable? Is it affordable for consumers? What's being expected of them? And so there's a lot of various things that you need to do in terms of planning for these PPPs, because there's significant liability taken by the federal government in this kind of a structure, and that, of course, only adds to your fiscal constraints, especially in this kind of an environment. So one has to think through very carefully and also think about financial viability. And this brings me to my last slide, which is really the reality of self-financing in MENA region. So we did a study, and this data is a little bit old. It's pre-COVID, it's 2018, but looking at the utility performance, what you see here is on the left, we have sewer tariffs, which are really very, very low. Wastewater systems tend to be quite expensive. The tariffs that are here, which is, at the most 34 cents in West Bank and Gaza, but much lower everywhere else, is not anywhere close to cost recovery. The graph on the right showing your operating cost coverage, this shows the operating cost coverage of water and sanitation operators in these countries without subsidy. And where you do have companies or countries that are recovering their costs, those are actually joint utilities. So what you see in the dark blue in the UAE, Qatar, and Morocco, those are energy and water companies. And so they're able to cover their costs because the energy revenues are subsidizing the water revenues. But the minute you take the energy out, water as itself as a service is not financially sustainable. And this graph on the bottom here shows the kind of debt situation. Actually, sorry, Jordan and Oman are not zero. They should be blocked out because they have negative earnings before interest and tax and depreciation. And what that means is that they don't have any ability to cover their existing debt. So they have significant debts, but the revenue that's coming in, the income that's coming in, the net bottom line is insufficient. It's nowhere near able to cover any of the debts that they have. And so then this debt becomes unsustainable for the utility. And then eventually the utility becomes reliant on the government to help either through subsidy transfers, etc., to pay off their debts. We have some quite good examples in the region. You have in Jordan the As Samra wastewater treatment plant, which is, again, it's the Ministry of Finance that's guaranteeing the payments to the private operators that makes that project sustainable. You have the Cairo wastewater treatment plant. There again, you have NUCA, the kind of housing agency that is financially viable and undertaking to pay the operators to have that sustainable service. And then, of course, you have countries like, Algeria, where they actually have quite a few successful PPPs, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc. But in these countries, the governments have taken a political decision, right? They know that they have enough income coming in from sales of energy, etc. And so they're willing to cover the cost of the water supply. It doesn't have to be financially sustainable. And that's a political choice at the end of the day. And they're able to structure those contracts because the payments come in from another source of income. And let me stop over there. Thank you very much. I know we're running out of time, so I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Lamrani. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sir Rajesh, for this thorough presentation, looking into what is already there in place and what are the real issues in public-private partnership from wastewater treatment and reuse perspective. And I think this is not, we have a knowledge gap in that when comparing countries and experiences. Thank you also for setting the frame for what are the risks and where we need to position innovative PPPs in wastewater in the region. As you rightly said, there is a mix of experiences. I mean, there are cases where this has led to a deadlock, both for the investors and for the contractor. But there are situations where it's somehow working, and probably because that is partly some of the requirements for a working BOT are performing differently across countries. You have the GCC countries, the Maghreb with Tunisia and Morocco, and the Jordan experience. It's quite an interesting reflection to do, and I think if we had to think of another package of capacity development in the perspective of wastewater treatment and reuse in the region, maybe this is another one to think of. Think of what are the state of the art today in innovation, in contracting, in making sure that both the investor and the user are optimizing their benefits from the service. Probably that's another idea to think about, and this is a call to Aqua and UN Habitat to add this to the recommendations on what we need in terms of capacity development needs in the region to advance this target under the DG6. I don't know, Khaldoon, do you want to make your presentation a statement so that we can have some time to give justice to the audience, because there are plenty of good questions.
Guys, it's 5 slides, but I will speak more than reading. Yani very quick.
Yeah, please do, because we need to hear from the audience.
5 minutes.
Yeah, please do. اتفضل.
Okay.
اتفضل مهندس.
First of all, we have to concentrate about the efficiency of the utility. Efficiency to reach to the financial sustainability. There are many ways: reducing non-revenue water, reducing energy, improving the supporting systems like billing, GIS, etc., because these tools are helping in having a good financial system, billing system, collection system. Then it ends to money. Conducting CSS, that to know who are your customers. We found many thousands of 10,000 of people in one of the utilities in Jordan. They are not registered in the billing system, so a loss of money. Using the technologies in customer management. This is long process. Reading, billing, GIS system, rounding, etc. Developing investment plan, and at last we have to connect on the institution and legal setup of the utility, including the HR, the building capacity, etc. Next slide. Now, we have to integrate the water resources management approach linked with the investments. We are talking a master plan with a budget, define the conventional, the unconventional water resources, find the gap between supply and needs, and at the end, convert these gaps into projects needed in water supply. The outcomes of the SDGs also will be taken to the investment plan that we need to develop. At the end, we have to develop the needed projects and put it in an investment plan. And again, fundraising. And I can claim that this webinar is one of those. Next. For the PPP, because was discussed intensively in this project, yes, we need the private sector, but also, as Mr. Rajesh said and other friends said, it needs some control. We need a regulatory. We need to design our projects in a proper way. We have some failure because our people, local people, they don't know the techniques of developing contracts and suppose management contracts or POT or etc. And the national companies also should develop actual financial strategy and financial modalities for the shareholding. At the end, I believe it's not only taking loans and the grants. Most of the Arab country, they are facing of the high debt on the loans. It's more exceeding the national level in many countries. They have very high bill in paying the interest of the loans. Grants are very rare now due to changes, conflicts in the world, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syrian refugees. Therefore, I call here for something called co-funding. That's participation of the national funds, such as Social Security, which mainly for the laborers, national pension for suppose engineers association, etc. And those people can be partners in any private sector participation. In the DC project, Social Security Fund, which is a governmental one, our money is there. They were participating in the capital investment and they reduce some of the lending money. By that, it will be a public-owned companies. Again, we have a good case in Dubai, a rich Emirates, but they sell DEWA, Dubai Water and Electricity Company, for shareholding. The employees, they took shares, it was equal share. So they have the liquidity and the money that they can go for more capital investment. Now the asset of the 4 or 5 companies in Jordan goes more than 3 billion. Now if we make share holding company by public, then we'll be collecting very high funding money can be used in future implementation of our business plan. But in this case, these utilities should be reaching the cost recovery because nobody will put his money in a company that it could be liquidated by 3 years of losses. Of course, building capacity, an operator within the water and wastewater utility, private sector participation in financing and certification of operators and facilities. Why? Because certification of the operators, it means good operation and maintenance and lowering the cost of maintenance. And facilities, it means we have to check the facility, the pumping station and wastewater treatment plant and make it working according to international standard. At the end, applying and use water governance tool and capacity building. Water governance tool, we're talking about water allocation, water budgeting, water pricing, water footprint. And the last, thank you.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Alhamdulillah, because I'm not talking or because it's good?
No, no, definitely, it's never enough. I think with such eminent speakers today, we had the privilege to hear the multifaceted problems of reuse of wastewater and what kind of innovation in finance, because most of the international reports and even local research on reuse of treated wastewater pinpoints the need for finance. But which finance mechanisms are we having in hand, and what countries should do to meet the requirement for eligibility and access to the existing financing channels, be it development banks, climate finance, the example of World Bank we heard from Rajesh, and the need of thinking of not only for the benefits, the economic return and so on, but also as Dr. Raji has rightly pinpointed, the looking into the co-benefits, because we can generate energy from wastewater, we can generate fertilizers, we can produce water to be reused in a circular economy approach. But there are things that would have happened if we didn't treat and reuse. And I'm thinking of using simulations and factual simulations. If that water was not treated and reused, what would be the implication and the cost, both in monetary and non-monetary terms? So this is probably more work to be done on ways to promote reuse of treated wastewater to achieve the SDG, to SDG 6 in particular, but also to help countries integrate more of treatment and reuse of wastewater in their NDCs. I'm sure that Dr. Ali Karnib with us can lecture on that and what could be done in treatment and reuse of wastewater, both for mitigation and adaptation. I think there is a gap there that we need to work on in the future, and this is probably one of the points to take up by Aqua and UN Habitat. Yeah, we have a few minutes for the audience, unfortunately, unless if you decide to stay longer, for questions and answers to the eminent and distinguished panelists that we had in the second part of this webinar. We have His Excellency Minister Tawfiq and Dr. Raji, Dr. Rajesh Advani from the World Bank, and Dr. Khadloun from the Aqua. Please just drop your questions directly or in the chat box as you prefer to our panelists.
Thank you, Hammo, Dr. Hammo. From Aqua side, I think it was very good, comprehensive webinar. We have best speakers, excluding me, of course. I think the questions raised and we could not answer, we are monitoring and we'll be sending it, like Mr. Bayad from Morocco and others, and we'll try to get answers from the speakers by emailing and send them back to them. Hopefully that we'll see more numbers on the next webinar. That's on 19th of July, Stockholm, about governance and wastewater systems. I'm very satisfied. Thanks for everybody. And I think this is the right track to address our problems and looking for a future roadmap to find solutions for our problems. Thank you.
So shall we close, Mhandis Khaldoon? That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think if our colleagues from UN Habitat would give us 1 minute, and His Excellency Dr. Engineer Abu Ibrahim Tawfiq, please.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا محمد. الأعزاء المشاركين جميعا، حقيقة سعدت بهذا الاجتماع الموجه لمناقشة إشكالية التمويلات المخصصة للاستثمار في برامج الصرف الصحي. قدمت عروض وأفكار قيمة من كافة المشاركين يمكن أن يتم البناء عليها للمستقبل لتعديل عقبات التمويل ما يتعلق بهذا الجانب، وذلك يتطلب الكثير من العمل للوصول إلى رؤية واضحة وآلية عمل يمكن تنفيذها وتتلائم مع توجهات المانحين. مثل هذه اللقاءات نعتقد أنها ينبغي أن تستمر في المستقبل لحل إشكاليات التمويل خصوصا في البلدان النامية والأقل نمو، وفي الوقت ذاته ندعو المانحين والصناديق الدولية والإقليمية لدعم هذا التوجه لتعزيز تعافي القطاع لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وذلك من خلال تسهيل الإجراءات للحصول على التمويلات وتعزيز إجراءات مشتركة للرقابة والتقييم من أجل إصلاح قطاع الصرف الصحي مع قطاع المياه كوحدة متكاملة في إطار حوكمة القطاع. ومن خلال ذلك لن يتأتى إلا من خلال بناء القدرات الوطنية في هذا المجال، وهذا يتطلب استثمارات عادلة تتوافق مع الاحتياجات المباشرة للبلدان والشراكة مع القطاع الخاص. أشكر الجميع لمساهمتهم القيمة، كما أشكر الأكوى لتقديم هذا اللقاء. الشكر الجزيل للدكتور حمو الأبراني جهده الكبير في إدارة هذا اللقاء، وشكرا جزيلا.
شكرا معالي الوزير. The key points probably to focus on is what His Excellency has just summed up now. Need for partnerships, need for incentives for the private sector to come in, a call to the financier to dedicate special attention to countries in recovering from conflicts and fragility, and ensure proper transition to an effective governance that addresses the weaknesses of the sector, but also supporting countries moving from humanitarian to development to make the water sector resilient and viable. Of course, I'm sure that our colleagues in Aqua and UN Habitat will summarize the directions that were or the roadmap elements that were suggested today by different speakers and the audience. So I believe that this will be shared with the audience. And again, thanks to Aqua and UN Habitat for putting this on and for having me. I wish our attendance today a nice end of the day, and I'm calling Dr. Mhandis Khaldoon, or reiterating what the Mhandis Khaldoon said about an invitation that he sent to you all to be part of the next events in this series. And again, شكرا للجميع على أمل اللقاء بحضراتكم جميعا في مناسبة ثانية، وشكرا لمعالي الوزير على حضوره معنا آخر دقيقة. لكم مني تحية جميعا، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وين صار؟